Chapter 847. Leng Shiqi originally thought that Nine Leaves' strength would be comparable to a Sky Origin late-stage cultivator after recovering to rank 7. Now that he was fighting with Xiepingyu, he was able to suppress a Sky Origin late-stage cultivator and a blood fiend. This strength was beyond Leng Shiqi's expectations. He collected his thoughts and decided to deal with his opponent first. Tian Qixing barely blocked the demon god's sword. Leng Shiqi appeared with a huge mysterious whirlpool slowly rotating above his head. Then the whirlpool turned into a huge bloody eye. There was a vertical pupil in the bloody eye, which seemed to reflect countless white bones. And those white bones were actually all kinds of demons. When the huge eye appeared, whether it was Tian Qixing's fish python or Xiepingyu's Qixing beast, they all suddenly cried out in fear. Even the fish python curled up and shivered. Eye of the Six Paths. Animal Path. The Eye of the Six Paths was comprehended by Leng Shiqi not long ago when he comprehended the 6 paths of reincarnation in the underworld. Each path had a different power. This animal path could make all the demons in the world submit to the law. Leng Shiqi formed a seal and the Eye of the Animal Path stood behind him. Then his eyes turned into the Eye of the Animal Path. With just one look, the fish python suddenly seemed to be tortured. Its whole body kept twisting, and a lot of terrible wounds appeared on its body. The fish python had the strength of a 7th-ranked demon, but it was so vulnerable in front of Leng Shiqi. Tian Qixing didn't know what was going on. He had never seen such a strange method since he started cultivating. But he knew that if this continued, the fish python that he had spent so much effort to cultivate would die. He was about to make a move, but suddenly he was shocked. He felt like he was being stared at by the god of death. Leng Shiqi had 4 arms on his back and instantly formed seals. In an instant, the sky was filled with thunder and lightning. Endless astral winds suddenly rose, and the ground was frozen. What was even more strange was that the thunder, astral wind, and ice crystals rapidly condensed in the blink of an eye, leaving only 3 seals that were half the height of a person. But just these 3 seals were enough to make Tian Qixing tremble in fear. This was because the 3 seals exuded a power that made him both envious and fearful. The power of the laws of heaven and earth. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that his opponent would be a Tongxian realm expert. The 3 voices drew upon the power of the laws of ice, wind, and thunder, and repelled all other energies, creating a small, narrow world with a radius of over 10,000 feet. Then endless divine lightning struck down. Gales that could destroy the void swept across the world. Ice crystals that could freeze the past and the present were frozen. Violent energy surged in this small world, as if it was the end of the world. This was the 3 talents seal that Leng Shiqi had continuously derived from the 3 talents imperial art. To the extreme, Tian Qixing was horrified. In the face of this doomsday-like power, he didn't even have a chance to fight back. Any spiritual skill or secret method was powerless in the face of this power. Leng Shiqi reached out and clenched his fist, and the whole small world collapsed. Tian Qixing, who was swallowed up, died with his eyes wide open. He asked, "Who are you?" "Underworld, Emperor of Fengdu," Leng Shiqi said indifferently, and then took away Tian Qixing's soul. An elder of the Blood Beast sect in the middle stage of the Heavenly Origin realm could be killed with a flip of his hand. On the other side, Xiepingyu was also in despair. When he fought with Nine Leaf just now, although he was at a disadvantage at the beginning, he still had many trump cards. He might not be able to turn defeat into victory, but at least he was confident that he could escape unscathed. However, after Leng Shiqi's Eye of the 6 Paths appeared, Xiepingyu's Qixing beast was also greatly affected. It didn't even resist and allowed Nine Leaf to attack. At this time, it was already covered in wounds. At this time, Xiepingyu realized that Leng Shiqi, this mysterious person, was their Blood Beast sect's nemesis. He had already begun to think of retreating. As long as he could break through Nine Leaf's purple crystal space, he could immediately contact Sect Master Situ Huanshu. When the experts of the Blood Beast sect arrived, everything would be easy to discuss. However, when Leng Shiqi used the 3 talent seal to instantly kill Tian Qixing, Xiepingyu was a little stunned. That mysterious person was actually a mystic comprehending realm expert. A mystic comprehending realm expert was personally dealing with them. Xie Pingyu couldn't figure out when a mystic comprehending realm expert appeared in the Northern Wei Empire. Why would he help a monster like Nine Leaf deal with the Blood Beast sect? It was useless to think about this now. With a mystic comprehending realm expert here, Xie Pingyu knew that he was no match for him. He hurriedly said, "Senior, please don't attack. There is no hatred that cannot be resolved in this world. As long as Senior is magnanimous, I am willing to pay any price." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi laughed inwardly. Back then, when Xie Pingyu displayed his might in the Demon Miasma mountain range, Leng Shiqi was only a low-level spirit cultivator in the spirit transformation realm. Now he had become Xie Pingyu's senior. He wouldn't talk nonsense with Xie Pingyu. The other party was the great elder of a top sect, who knew how many trump cards he had. Moreover, this place was thousands of miles away from Northern Wei, but it wasn't too far for the Sky Origin realm. If Xie Pingyu spread the news, it would be troublesome. Therefore, he had to end the battle as soon as possible. Nine Leaf, help me restrain him. Nine Leaf smiled eerily. A faint purple scorpion image appeared behind her. A sharp voice pierced through Xie Pingyu's sea of consciousness and into the depths of his soul. That voice was like a hook that could directly hook out his soul. Xie Pingyu's vision darkened and felt like he was going to faint. He suddenly bit his tongue and burned all the essence blood in his body. However, he was shocked to find that a portion of his essence blood was leaving his body uncontrollably. He looked up and saw a blood mark floating in the sky. It was this thing that was guiding his essence blood. Blood Guide Heaven's Might Seal. It was specially used to deal with burning essence blood. At this moment, Xie Pingyu's soul was out of control. His essence blood was also out of control. He was also being suppressed by the gravity space, and Nine Leaves' amethyst space was cutting off his spiritual sense. As for the Qi Xing beast, it didn't dare to move under the deterrence of the Eye of the Six Paths. It felt like it couldn't cry out for help. It clearly had the cultivation of the Sky Origin late stage, but it couldn't even use 20 to 30% of its power. What awaited Xie Pingyu was only death. And it was an extremely sullen death. No. Xie Pingyu thought of his great ambitions. He hadn't reached his goal yet. He couldn't die like this. Meanwhile, 3 Dharma images of heaven and earth appeared beside Leng Shiqi. One of them was the Buddha of Slaughter holding a Buddhist monk's blade. The other was the Emperor of Fengdu from the 9 underworlds, who ruled over life and death. The Dharma image in the middle was like a god from the heavenly palace. It looked down on all living things. The 3 Dharma images swung their blades at the same time. Divine light appeared to slay gods and vanquish the void. Demonic flames filled the sky and cut through the void. Buddhist light bloomed and purified the world. The 3 flowers of God, demon, and Buddha were short-lived. Xie Pingyu turned into ashes amidst his endless terror. Chapter 848. You killed him before I even had the chance to use my full strength. Nine Leaf was a little unhappy. Xie Pingyu was one of the 2 people she hated the most. It was too easy for him to die just like that. Leng Shiqi was too lazy to answer. A Sky Origin late-stage cultivator couldn't be underestimated. If Xie Pingyu hadn't been suppressed everywhere, he wouldn't have been killed so easily. Nine Leaf didn't want to take advantage. He changed the subject and said, Xie Pingyu is dead. What are you going to do next? Xie Pingyu is dead, but the Blood Beast sect is still here. Nine Leaves' meaning was obvious. She was still going to deal with the Blood Beast sect. Leng Shiqi immediately advised, I advise you not to target the Blood Beast sect anymore. The main culprit is already dead, and the Blood Beast sect has paid with the lives of a large number of disciples and 2 elders. This is enough to eliminate the hatred in your heart. Ha! Nine Leaf was puzzled. Was this something Leng Shiqi would say? If it was in the past, Leng Shiqi would definitely try to destroy the Blood Beast sect. Even if he couldn't destroy it, he would drive the tiger to devour the wolf. In short, the Blood Beast sect wouldn't have an easy time. But Leng Shiqi said this at this time. Even Nine Leaf felt that the Leng Shiqi in front of her had been replaced. Of course, Leng Shiqi was still him. The reason why he said this was because he was very afraid of the Beast Sovereign. The mysterious and powerful Beast Sovereign. In particular, the Beast Sovereign had specifically reminded Leng Shiqi that the Blood Beast sect could be in chaos, but it couldn't be destroyed. Leng Shiqi was not afraid, but steady. He explained. I found an extraordinary existence in the Blood Beast sect before. With your strength and mine, it's better not to provoke it. Nine Leaves' expression also became a little heavy. She knew Leng Shiqi very well. To be able to be evaluated by him as an existence that couldn't be provoked, it must be abnormally powerful. Well, let's put aside the grievances of the Blood Beast sect for the time being. Then I will target the Imperial Beast sect. Nine Leaf also followed her heart. To Nine Leaf's surprise, Leng Shiqi shook his head again and said, "No, we can't touch the Imperial Beast camp either." One had to know that the Imperial Beast abode and the Blood Beast sect had been mortal enemies for countless years. Now that the Blood Beast sect had lost 3 Sky Origin stage experts and a large number of disciples, it could be said that it was a great loss. What do you think the Imperial Beast camp will do next? Devour the Blood Beast sect. Nine Leaf immediately understood what Leng Shiqi meant. Since the Blood Beast sect's strength had been greatly damaged, the Imperial Beast abode would naturally suppress the Blood Beast sect in all aspects. Even without Nine Leaf's intervention, the Blood Beast sect would only become more and more miserable. If Nine Leaf went to cause trouble for the Imperial Beast abode at this time, with such a powerful enemy, the Imperial Beast abode would have no time to care about the Blood Beast sect. Therefore, Nine Leaf didn't have to do anything. He just had to sit and watch the dogs bite each other. Leng Shiqi continued. Originally, the 2 top sects were on par with each other in terms of power. They fought with each other, but no one could do anything to the other. Now the Blood Beast sect is obviously at a great disadvantage. However, the Blood Beast sect still has Situ Huanxiu, the sect master, and he can't be suppressed by the Imperial Beast abode. Therefore, I predict that there will be a war between the 2 sects in the near future. When this war starts, you can secretly intervene. That will be the greatest revenge against them. After listening to this, Nine Leaf confirmed that Leng Shiqi had not been replaced. Okay, it seems that I have nowhere to go. Nine Leaf's revenge was half completed. The 1,000-legged Beast King of the Imperial Beast abode, Nan Menyun, could not be touched for the time being. It seemed that she really had nothing to do. As for participating in the All-Spirit Gathering, it was impossible. If she didn't make a move, the Gu King could help her cover up her aura. Once she made a move, everything would be exposed. Nine Leaf rolled his eyes and said, "Forget it. Then I'll go to the far northern wastelands. After all, that's the habitat of the demon clan. With my strength, I might even be able to become a demon king." As he said that, he became excited. Leng Shiqi clapped his hands and praised. Going to the far northern wastelands was good. Let's go and kill those demon beasts. You helped me kill Xiepingyu. I don't know how to repay such a big favor. Before leaving, Nine Leaf said faintly, in the past, she often lent Leng Shiqi a part of her strength. Now that their strength had even reversed, she didn't know how to repay the favor. We've been together for a long time. It's not easy for us to get to where we are today. I can still help you with this. Leng Shiqi said generously. Immediately, he changed the topic. If you must help me, that's fine. As he said that, he handed a jade slip to Nine Leaf. This is the location of the lightning-type tribulation Divine Thunder. It's in the far northern wastelands, but the specific location is not very clear. I don't know if it has been taken away by others. Since you're going to the far northern wastelands, why don't you help me find it on the way? I knew you wouldn't lose out. It's just a small matter. Leave it to me. Nine Leaf put away the jade slip and was about to leave. Suddenly, a roar filled with boundless anger sounded. How dare you touch my Blood Beast sex people? You're courting death. In the distance, dots of green light converged into a figure. The voice came from this person. It's Situ Huanxiu. Nine Leaf was shocked at first. She had been using the purple crystal space to block Xiepingyu, not giving the other party a chance to send a message. How could Situ Huanxiu appear here? However, when Nine Leaf took a look, she immediately chuckled. So it's just an illusion. With this little strength, you dare to bark in front of this old lady? Evildoer, it's actually you. Situ Huanxiu immediately recognized Nine Leaf, and he was naturally shocked. Previously, he had sent Xiepingyu and Tian Qixing back to the sect to suppress the riot in the beast cesspool. He had already determined that there was a mole in the main sect, so these two were naturally on his list of suspects. Therefore, he deliberately kept an eye out and released an illusion to quietly follow behind them to see if there was a mole in these two people. Unfortunately, his illusion was not fast enough, so he could only follow from a distance. By accident, he happened to see the scene of Xie Pingyu being killed. He knew that the person who could kill Xie Pingyu and Tian Qixing must be very powerful. He could not deal with him at all with his illusory body. His biggest goal was still to know who the murderer was. When he saw that it was Nine Leaf, his hatred could not help but soar. This demoness had been surrounded and killed by them several times and had not died. Now she had killed two elders of the Blood Beast sect. This enmity was absolutely irreconcilable. At the same time, Situ Huanshu also noticed Leng Shiqi. At this time, Leng Shiqi was dressed in the attire of the Emperor of Fengdu, and his aura was as unfathomable as the abyss. Situ Huanshu instantly saw that Leng Shiqi was a bigger threat than Nine Leaf. Who was this mysterious person? Before he could say anything, Nine Leaf snapped his fingers, and his illusory body was torn apart and scattered. I didn't expect Situ Huanshu to have a trick up his sleeve. Fortunately, he acted fast enough. His original body should be on the way. I'll leave first. Nine Leaf left after saying that. Leng Shiqi's palm stroked the void, and the strange power of the earth wiped out all traces of the battle. Even if Situ Huanshu came here, he would not be able to find any clues. Chapter 849. After doing this, Leng Shiqi instantly teleported back to Wei Capital and returned to his room. Since the dust had settled, there was nothing for him to worry about. In order to complete the act, he specially created a fake Nine Leaf to show his face before disappearing into a corner. It had only been a day or two since he dealt with the Blood Beast sect. The myriad spirit meet was about to begin, so he should make preparations. Originally, Leng Shiqi had planned to use the sword, the blade, and the four spirits formation diagram as his main combat strength. He believed that with his physical strength and spirit power, he would be able to get a good ranking in the Sky Origin stage. He didn't need to be first. He just needed to be qualified to enter the Ashen Aeon realm. The top 5 in the Heavenly Yuan realm could enter. However, Situ Huanshu had seen his short-lived success, so he naturally couldn't use it again. This way his public strength would be weaker. He had to think of other methods. After resting for a while, Leng Shiqi called Banning over. "Your Highness, please give me your orders." Banning bowed and chuckled. "Give me the information on all the Heavenly Yuan realm battles in the Myriad Spirit meet." Leng Shiqi wouldn't be careless. He had to understand his future opponents first. Banning chuckled. "I've already prepared it for your Highness. Please take a look." He presented an exquisite scroll to Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi nodded his head in satisfaction and began to read it. There were far more Heavenly Yuan realm experts participating in the Myriad Spirit meet than the world's first Spirit Cultivator meet. After all, the Thunderblaze dynasty's relationship with the Spirit Cultivator sects was too strained. Almost no one dared to come. Only the Supreme Saber Hall's Hallmaster, Fuingxi, came. In the end, he brought back the title of number 1 in the world, and was made a fool of by the Thunderblaze dynasty. It was said that Fuingxi didn't have an easy time after that. Heavenly Yuan realm experts came to challenge him every few days. If he accepted the challenge, the challengers would only become stronger and stronger. He would lose sooner or later. If he didn't accept the challenge, he would only be scolded as a coward. Yushu was in the Supreme Saber Hall. It was said that Fuingxi was in a sorry state all day, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. In the end, Fuingxi couldn't take it anymore. He could only take the initiative to give up the title of number 1 in the world. Whoever wanted to fight for it could do so. 33 Sky Origin stage cultivators had signed up for the All Spirits gathering. More than half of them were experts from the Northern Wei Empire. For example, the Imperial Beast Abode and the Blood Beast sect had 7 experts in total. There was also the Heavenly Dipper sect, one of the 5 level sects, and the Fallen Cherry Spirit region, one of the 4 sacred spirit regions. The remaining people were from the Thunderblaze dynasty and the Starfall dynasty. The one from the Thunderfire dynasty was Xian Haoying. Leng Shiqi had sensed her spiritual energy before, and she was definitely at the peak of the Heaven Origin stage. The strongest person from the Starfall dynasty was the Duke of Qi. Whether it was strength or prestige, he was extremely high in the Starfall dynasty. It was said that he had already touched the edge of the mystic comprehending realm. Ban Ning also marked out the strongest people among these people. The Northern Wei Empire's people were Blood Beast Sect Master Situ Huanshu, Imperial Beast Sect Master 10 Directions Beast King Luolu, Heavenly Dipper Sect Master Kong Jianba, and Falling Cherry Spirit Domain's Fairy Luoing. These people were the sect masters of the top sects in the Northern Wei Empire. If they were not at the late stage of the Heaven Origin stage, then they were at the peak of the Heaven Origin stage. Any one of them was in existence that could shake the world. The four of them were the most popular candidates to become the champion of the Myriad Spirit Gathering, especially Fairy Luoing. Many people believed that she would become the champion. However, the Thunderblaze dynasty's Imperial Consecration Hall Xian Haoying and the Starfall dynasty's Duke of Qi were not to be underestimated. They represented their respective empires to fight for face. It could be seen that the battle between the Heaven Origin stage was extremely intense. Other than the 33 Heaven Origin stage experts, there were two other special people. They participated in the battle between the Heaven Origin stage experts with their unity of Heaven Origin stage cultivation. Leng Shiqi was one of them. When he saw the name of the other person, he was also surprised. 10,000 Laws Wondrous Sect, Meng Tiantian. Leng Shiqi still had a fresh memory of this person. Meng Tiantian had once used only a glance to make him sink into dozens of illusions. One had to know that Leng Shiqi's mental strength was not weak. Furthermore, he had cultivated high-level illusions. Even so, he was still in such a sorry state. It could be seen that Meng Tiantian's attainments in illusions were shocking. In Leng Shiqi's heart, other than the 6 popular experts, Meng Tiantian was the biggest threat to him. He continued to read carefully. The report also briefly described the spiritual techniques that everyone was proficient in. Of course, it was only superficial. Any Heaven Origin stage expert had many methods, and this could only be used as a reference. Time passed in a flash, and the Myriad Spirit Gathering was finally about to begin. The spirit cultivators that came from the Thunderblaze dynasty were divided into 2 types. The various sects were one type, and there were not many of them. Most of them were from sects that were closer to the Northern Wei Empire. The other type was Leng Shiqi and the other spirit cultivators that belonged to the Thunderblaze dynasty. Everyone was led by Xian Haoying, who was the strongest force that came from the Thunderblaze dynasty. Leng Shiqi was second. His cultivation was not high, but his strength was publicly recognized as comparable to the Heaven Origin stage. Furthermore, his status as the King of the West Desolation was incomparable. Even Xian Haoying was very polite to him. Everyone gathered together. Xian Haoying was a man who looked somewhat refined. His noble aura made people look sideways. He smiled and said, "I've long heard that the King of the West Desolation is young and promising. Today, I've seen that you live up to your reputation." He knew that Leng Shiqi had signed up for the Heaven Origin stage competition. The key was that everyone who knew about this thought that it was normal. Even the people of the Northern Wei Empire could not find anything wrong with Leng Shiqi's battle results. They could only say that the Thunderblaze dynasty had indeed produced a peerless genius. "Lord Xian is too kind," Leng Shiqi said courteously. "With Lord Xian here, I think that the position of the champion will be easily obtained." "Haha, there are many experts here this time. I don't dare to boast, but I still have some confidence." Xian Haoying was also quite confident. Perhaps in his eyes, only the Starfall dynasty's Duke Qi and Fairy Luoing had the qualifications to be his true opponents. He then looked at Delta Origi, Zhuge Puha and the rest. "The dynasty has you all as pillars. What is there to worry about? Let's go to the martial field first." The martial field was the place where the Thousand Spirit Gathering was held. However, the location was not within the Wei capital, but 100 miles north. There were tens of thousands of spirit cultivators participating in the competition, and there was no lack of experts. If they all fought in the Wei capital, even with the protection of the array, it was hard to avoid some accidents. Therefore, the Northern Wei Empire specially built a place for the competition. Leng Shiqi and the rest walked out of the inn and headed towards the martial field. After they left, 3 people in black cloaks came out from the corner. Is it him? One of them asked. That's right. We waited bitterly for him in the Zhuge family for nearly 2 years, but he came directly here. Let's go. Everything is about to begin. Chapter 850. Although the Marshall Field was called a Marshall Field, it was actually very large. The entire Marshall Field was built in a circular shape with more than 10 levels, making it look like a giant arena. More than 100,000 people were squeezed into the Marshall Field like countless ants. The intense heat waves made everyone excited. They were about to witness many experts from all over the continent fighting. It must be known that those low-level spirit cultivators would only see a few high-level spirit cultivators in their entire lives. Just like when Leng Shiqi carried out his first mission in the Blood Clothing Pavilion. Even if he encountered Bo Yuanho's tomb, it would only attract low-level spirit cultivators. Having 2 or 3 spirit pulse realm cultivators was enough to be called experts. Only when one's cultivation and strength increased would they have the chance to come into contact with spirit cultivators of the same level, or even stronger people. Leng Shiqi and the rest were all participants. They came to the resting room through a special passage, but the group was still separated. The 3 Sky Origin Realm cultivators of the Thunderfire Dynasty and Leng Shiqi were in the same room. The 3 of them were Xian Haoying, the old man, and a Sky Origin Realm middle stage expert. It was a lady in a blue dress with a veil covering her face. She had an unapproachable look. On the way here, the old man transmitted a message to Leng Shiqi. This person was a rare female in the Imperial Consecration Hall. She was an expert in water element and was called Shui Liuli. Because Leng Shiqi was going to participate in the Sky Origin Realm battle, he was also arranged to be here. Taking advantage of the fact that there was still some time before the Thousand Spirit Gathering, the few of them started to chat. The old man muttered, "There are a total of 35 people in the Sky Origin Realm, and we have 4. Don't tell me we will meet in the first round." The probability of this was not small, but Xian Haoying said, "I have specifically asked about this. In the first round of the Sky Origin Realm battles, the 3 empires have a rule of avoidance. If we get an opponent from each empire, we can draw lots again." Following that, the few of them talked about the rules of the Thousand Spirit Gathering. There were no qualifiers for the Thousand Spirit Gathering, so there were tens of thousands of participants gathered in the Marshall Field. If they were to fight one-on-one, who knew how long it would take? The Northern Wei Empire's method was to eliminate the sand with great waves. At this moment, there were dozens of towers in the center of the martial arts field, known as the Trial Towers. Over 1,000 people could enter the Tower of Trials at a time, and the time limit was 1 hour. Only the 10 people who could walk out of the Tower of Trials were qualified to enter the next round. It was said that there were many traps in the Tower of Trials, and there were even demonic beasts. Of course, the Northern Wei Empire would not allow the participants to die so easily. Therefore, there were some safe rooms in the Tower of Trials. As long as the participants entered the safe rooms, they would not be in any danger. Similarly, entering the safe room also meant that you had lost the chance to advance. After passing the Tower of Trials, all the low-level spirit cultivator would be finished in just a few rounds. The efficiency was extremely fast. However, the fluctuations from the battle between Unity of Heaven Realm and Heaven Origin Realm experts were too great. Moreover, there weren't many of them, so it wasn't suitable to use the Trial Tower. The Northern Wei Empire had used a miraculous item, the Mental Illusion Array, to prevent the Northern Wei Empire from attacking. When the 2 combatants walked into the illusory array, they would be able to create a scene and an illusion of themselves. In the illusory array, they would be able to imitate everything they had learned. Even their spirit weapons could be imitated. More importantly, the people outside would be able to watch the battle inside the array. To be able to watch the battle between Unity of Heaven Realm and Heaven Origin Realm experts was a rare sight. Everyone was looking forward to this. However, there were too many participants, and the Northern Wei Empire did not want the Thousand Spirit Gathering to end too early. Therefore, they arranged a few Heaven Origin Realm battles every day as the finale. As the few of them chatted, time slowly passed. A portion of the low-level spirit cultivator, Spirit Pulse Realm, Spirit Aperture Realm, and Spirit Astral Realm battles ended. Finally, it was the Heaven Origin Realm's turn. The entire martial field's fiery atmosphere instantly reached its peak. Under everyone's gazes, the first pair of opponents was drawn out. Thunderous Blaze Empire's King of the West, Leng Shiqi, versus Northern Wei Empire's Demon Execution Division, Wu Changyu. The Demon Execution Division was similar to the Discipline Division of the Thunderous Blaze Empire. The difference was that other than suppressing the Spirit Cultivator sects, the Demon Execution Division also had to guard the Northern Wastelands. In the Northern Wastelands, there were often many demonic beasts that came to harass them. There were even some demonic beasts with special abilities that sneaked in and caused trouble everywhere. The Demon Execution Division also had to deal with these demonic beasts. This Wu Changyu was the commissioner of the Demon Execution Division. He could be considered the second in command and had a Heaven Origin Realm middle stage cultivation. Wu Changyu was extremely famous in the Northern Wei Empire. He even had a glorious battle record of killing a 7th-level great demon by himself. Seeing that he was about to appear, everyone in the martial field immediately cheered loudly. As for Leng Shiqi, almost no one cared about him because no one knew him. The Thunderous Blaze Empire had registered him for the Heaven Origin Realm battle. Many big shots had secretly investigated him, but to a large number of low-level spirit cultivators, they did not have the qualifications. They only knew that Leng Shiqi was the Thunderous Blaze Empire's King of the West, and other than that, they did not know much. The highest level of the stands was filled with famous people. When they saw that the first battle was between Wu Changyu and Leng Shiqi, they all revealed a smile that everyone understood. They were very clear that Leng Shiqi was only at the unity of heaven and man realm. Although they knew that Leng Shiqi had defeated Elder Shao of the Six Directions domain, and was very strong, Elder Shao had just entered the Heaven Origin Realm a few years ago, while Wu Changyu was at the Heaven Origin Realm middle stage. Furthermore, Wu Changyu was a battle maniac. He often went deep into the northern wastelands to fight with demon beasts. His battle strength was definitely at the peak of the same realm. No matter how strong Leng Shiqi was, he could not be stronger than Wu Changyu. In the end, the Thousand Spirit Gathering was organized by the Northern Wei Empire. The first and most important battle naturally had to be arranged. The Northern Wei Empire had to win. As the saying goes, pick the soft persimmon to pinch. The only opponents that could guarantee victory were Leng Shiqi and Meng Tiantian. Meng Tiantian was from the 10,000 Laws Mysterious sect. Compared to Leng Shiqi, the Thunderous Blaze Empire's King of the West and one of the 4 Dark Lightning Guards, defeating Leng Shiqi in the first battle was equivalent to slapping the Thunderous Blaze Empire's face. Of course, defeating him was the most worthwhile. As for whether or not he would be accused of bullying the weak, he was the one who insisted on fighting with a Heaven Origin Realm cultivator. Who else could he blame? Everyone should know about this King of the West. What a pity. Ha ha ha, it is indeed a pity. If he were to participate in the battle of the unity of heaven and man realm, with his strength, there would not be many who could be his opponent. Who asked him to not know what is good for him? He thinks that he is invincible after defeating a Heaven Origin Realm cultivator. Young people are still young people. The important figures all believed that Leng Shiqi would lose without a doubt, and could not help but ridicule him. They did not deliberately hide their words, and these words were also heard by the nearby cultivators. Then, it quickly spread from 1 to 10 to 100. Only now did they know that Leng Shiqi was only at the unity of heaven and man realm. Chapter 851. The arena was in an uproar. More than 90% of the people present did not know about Leng Shiqi's battle record. When he stood on the stage, no one could tell his cultivation level. Whether it was unity of heaven or heaven origin, they were all existences that everyone looked up to. However, when they found out about Leng Shiqi's cultivation level, they were shocked. Heaven Origin was a super powerhouse that surpassed the 4 realms of heaven and man. Unity of heaven was like an ant in front of a Heaven Origin powerhouse. This Leng Shiqi actually dared to fight a Heaven Origin powerhouse. Did he want to die? On the stage, Leng Shiqi ignored everyone and faced his opponent. Wu Changyu of the Demon Slayers division was a little short and average-looking. However, when he stood there, He felt like a volcano that was about to erupt. No one knew how powerful his body was. Waves of astonishing battle intent surged out from him. He did not underestimate Leng Shiqi. No matter how others looked at it, Wu Changyu himself might not be able to defeat a heaven origin powerhouse in one strike. Maybe he could, but he would have to use all his strength. However, according to the information he received from Leng Shiqi easily defeated Elder Shao. Clearly, Leng Shiqi did not use all his strength. Therefore, he never underestimated Leng Shiqi from the beginning. The two walked into the illusory array. Leng Shiqi sat cross-legged on a piece of jade. Then his spiritual body entered the illusory array, and a person that looked exactly like him appeared. The scenery around him had also turned into a barren land. In the distance, there were a few small hills rising and falling one after another. Leng Shiqi reached out and seemed to grab a wisp of air. It's almost the same as the outside world. This illusory array is not simple. I heard that you are very strong. I wonder how strong you are. Wu Changyu's voice came. At this time, he had also entered an illusory body. He stood in the air and looked down at Leng Shiqi. You'll know when you try. Leng Shiqi stepped lightly and stood in the air. He did not control the elemental energy of heaven and earth. Instead, he used the law of Earth's anti-gravity. This scene was different in everyone's eyes. Those who did not know better would think that he had broken through to heaven origin. Because of this, the martial arts arena also caused a burst of exclamations. Inside the illusory array, Wu Changyu's expression froze. He had wanted to provoke Leng Shiqi with his words and attitude, but who would have thought that it would not work at all? Leng Shiqi's calmness and methods made him pay more attention to him. Buzz. A spiritual sword materialized in front of Leng Shiqi. It was the Class 8 Earth weapon, Thousand Illusion Dao Sword. With a thought, a layer of scarlet golden flames appeared on the sword, and there seemed to be a dragon's soul swimming within it. Thousand Illusion Dao Sword, Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame, Wu Changyu muttered. The Thousand Illusion Dao Sword was a rank 8 Earth weapon, and it was also the most precious treasure of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. Even in the Heaven Origin realm, it was very rare to have a spirit artifact of this level. Heavenly Strange Flames were even rarer than rank 8 Earth Soldiers. Even though Wu Changyu already knew that Leng Shiqi had them, he still frowned when he felt the sword intent and the blazing flames. He waved his hands, and the surrounding origin energy of heaven and earth instantly condensed. He pointed a finger, and the power of this finger shook the void, containing an extremely violent power. Wu Changyu had spent his entire life fighting against demonic beasts. His spirit cultivation path could only be described in one word: battle. When fighting demons, those fancy spirit techniques were useless. The simpler and more violent the power, the more effective it was. Leng Shiqi's finger flicked the blade of the sword, and the Thousand Illusion Dao Sword immediately let out an excited cry. In an instant, the sword roared, and the blazing flame sword intent roared out. The pure violent finger energy collided with the crimson gold earth dragon sword, and immediately a powerful wave was produced. The power was enough to cover the sky, and the sky in the illusory array suddenly turned gray. If they were fighting in the capital of Wei, this kind of power could probably overturn the entire capital. The spectators outside the arena were also overturned. The first exchange was such a terrifying scene, and it was a feast for their eyes. But to the two people fighting, this level of attack was just a probing attack. In other words, they had not used their true strength. When the light dissipated, the two were indeed safe and sound. However, the two of them had different expressions. Leng 17 had a calm and collected look, while Wu Changyu had a grave and stern expression. He clawed down, and the origin energy of heaven and earth condensed into a giant hand print hundreds of feet large. It was wild and unstoppable. Leng Shiqi's Thousand Illusion Dao Sword suddenly split into 4. The power of earth, wind, water, and fire exploded. The surrounding void was torn apart, and endless life and death was contained within. It was extremely terrifying. The power of the 4 symbols was a kind of origin energy of the world, and it contained the Tao of life and death. At this time, it displayed the power to destroy the world. Leng Shiqi, who was in seclusion, did not give up on comprehending other powers. His understanding of the power of the four symbols deepened, and it became the four symbols Sword Dao. What he cared about was not how powerful the four symbols Sword Dao could be, but how to comprehend the power of the five elements. The power of the five elements had been troubling Leng Shiqi. After a long time, he thought of a shortcut. The four symbols of earth, water, and fire corresponded with the formless earth, water, and fire. He would integrate the power of the four symbols into the Sword Dao, and then use the four symbols Sword Dao to deduce the five elements Sword Dao, and comprehend the power of the five elements. Of course, this was the ideal situation. Leng Shiqi did not know if it would succeed, but it was still a way. To him, the four symbols Sword Dao was purely a transition, but in Wu Changyu's eyes, it was very different. The four origin Dao swords circled around Leng Shiqi, and the terrifying four symbols sword intent made Wu Changyu's pupils shrink. How could this power be controlled by someone in the unity of heaven and man realm? Leng Shiqi moved his finger, and the four Dao swords whizzed out. Strange phenomena appeared in the world, and they strangled towards Wu Changyu. Facing the four symbols Sword Dao, Wu Changyu felt an unprecedented pressure. It was a pressure that not even a rank 7 great demon could give him. Wu Changyu was not afraid. On the contrary, his whole body was already burning with fighting spirit. The stronger Leng Shiqi was, the more powerful his fighting strength would be. Stepping out, a figure appeared behind Wu Changyu. The figure was like an ancient demon god, tearing the sky with his hands and crushing the earth with his feet. Punches after punches were thrown out, and each punch shook the illusion. The four Dao swords were blocked by the fist shadows, and each sword collided with dozens of fist shadows at the same time. The ear-piercing sound of the collision was deafening, and the explosion of spiritual power stimulated everyone's vision. Everyone kept exclaiming. This was a terrifying scene brought about by a battle between Sky Origin Realm experts. They had unknowingly forgotten that Leng Shiqi's cultivation was only in the unity of heaven and man realm. The battle between the two naturally fell into the eyes of the other Sky Origin Realm experts. The old man was the first to mutter, "Good fellow, he actually integrated the power of the four symbols into his Sword Dao. No wonder this kid has not broken through to the Sky Origin Realm. It turns out that he has a big plan." Xian Haoying nodded slightly. His Majesty's vision is indeed sharp. Leng Shiqi's cultivation level in the future will probably surpass yours and mine. There is no need for the dynasty to restrict this kind of person. It is enough as long as he is willing to stand on the side of the dynasty. Even Shui Liuli, who had never spoken before, had a strange look in her eyes. Chapter 852. Meanwhile, Northern Wei's heavenly origin territory was even more shocked. Imperial Beast Abode's 10 Directions Beast King, Luolu, said in surprise. To be able to grasp a trace of the power of the four elements at the unity of heaven and man realm, and combine it with his own Sword Dao, even half of the heavenly origin realm can't do this. This kid's talent and comprehension are really too terrifying. Don't belittle yourself by praising others. The armored man beside him added. This person stood there like a small mountain. His arms were exposed, and every muscle contained explosive power. He was the Heavenly Dipper sect master, Kong Jianba, who was at the peak of the heavenly origin realm. Moreover, he was an extremely rare body cultivator in the world. His body was invincible, and he could break through with force. This king of the Western Desolation is indeed monstrous, but didn't the Blood Beast sect also have Zhuoduanya? He broke through to the heavenly origin realm before the age of 40. Situ Huanshu, why didn't you let Zhuoduanya participate in the all-spirit gathering this time? The one who spoke was a beauty who was half lying on a chair. She was dressed in gorgeous pink, which made her look luxurious and charming. She was Fairy Luoying from the Falling Cherry Spirit region. Her cultivation was also at the peak of the heavenly origin realm. Situ Huanshu's face was gloomy, and he ignored Fairy Luoying. These few days he had been busy settling down the disciples of the Blood Beast sect, and tracking down the culprit behind the scenes. In the end he had found nothing. He valued the all-spirit gathering very much. This was a great opportunity to stand out, and he didn't want to give it up. He still had to come and participate, but the progress of hunting down the culprit would basically be put on hold again. It would be strange if he was in a good mood. Fairy Luoying saw that Situ Huanqiu didn't speak, and her face turned cold. She snorted and said, "Sect Master Situ is so arrogant. I heard that there was a riot in the Blood Beast Sect's beast prison a few days ago, and almost all the demonic beasts inside died. Aya, how many disciples can't get their own blood beasts now? How pitiful." Imperial Beast Abode's sect master, Luo Lu, took the opportunity to mock and ridicule. He had already started to secretly target the Blood Beast sect. Situ Huanqiu was still unmoved. These words couldn't shake his mentality, and could only make him hate the culprit even more. He would never have thought that the culprit behind the scenes was right in front of him. The Four Elements Sword Dao was not as explosive as the Four Spirits array diagram, but it was more flexible. Lung Shiqi formed a sword with his fingers, and the four swords suddenly bloomed with brilliance. In an instant, huge waves surged into the sky, dragon flames destroyed the world, Mount Tai pressed down, and wind swept through the world. All kinds of forces erupted in the illusory realm, instantly filling the entire illusory realm. A force of nirvanic extermination suddenly appeared, directly shattering the divine shadow behind Wu Changyu. Pooh! The destruction of the Dharma idol immediately caused Wu Changyu to suffer a serious injury. This scene was naturally seen by everyone. There was a strange silence in the martial arts field. Everyone had been watching enthusiastically earlier. Now that Wu Changyu had spat out blood, they realized that this wasn't just a battle of the all-spirit gathering. To a certain extent, it was also related to the reputation of the two empires. In terms of cultivation, Wu Changyu was obviously much stronger than Lung Shiqi. However, it turned out that Wu Changyu, a middle-stage Sky Origin stage cultivator, was the one who was injured. The old man clicked his tongue in wonder. "Gugue, I'm afraid even I can't beat this kid." Xian Haoying and Shui Liuli were also surprised. On the Northern Wei Empire's side, Fairy Luoying even stood up. "I originally thought that he had only comprehended a bit of the Four Elements Sword Dao. He can actually materialize the Four Elements Sword Dao. No, if he can do this, why hasn't he broken through to the Sky Origin stage? It's a pity that Wu Changyu is going to become a sinner." The Big Dipper sect master, Kong Jianba, muttered to himself. The Imperial Beast Abodes Luo Lu and the Blood Beast sects Situ Huanqiu weren't thinking about this. At this moment, they were both thinking about whether they could win if they were in Wu Changyu's place. If it was a battle of life and death, as the sect masters of two top sects, they were confident that they could win with the help of powerful spirit beasts and blood fiends. However, this was not a battle of life and death, but a competition. There were many methods that were not suitable for them to use. Moreover, they would be fighting in the illusion. Although the illusion could manifest the same cultivation level, it might not be able to manifest the full strength of the spirit beasts and blood fiends. Therefore, this was a huge disadvantage for Luo Lu and Situ Huanqiu. Under such circumstances, they really didn't dare to say that they could win against Lung Shiqi. In the illusion array, Wu Changyu was silent for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said, "I admit defeat." Hua. As soon as he said this, the spirit cultivators in the martial field immediately shouted, "You haven't lost yet. Why are you admitting defeat? It's just a slip of the hand. You're the commissioner of the demon-slaying division. How can you admit defeat so easily? Losing to someone in the unity of heaven realm, your reputation will be ruined if you admit defeat. It will also make the Northern Wei Empire lose face." Wu Changyu knew what they were talking about, but he also knew that there was no point in continuing the fight. He didn't have the ability to resist the explosive power of the Four Elements Sword Dao. Even if he used all his skills, he would only lose even more miserably. At that time, he would only lose even more face. After he admitted defeat, someone announced on the spot that the winner of this competition was Lung Shiqi from the Thunderblaze Empire. In fact, Lung Shiqi was a little surprised that Wu Changyu admitted defeat like this. In the past, all his opponents had fought with their lives on the line. Perhaps it was because this was a competition, so it was normal for Wu Changyu to admit defeat when he saw that there was no hope of winning. After winning, Lung Shiqi returned to his room and naturally, he couldn't help but congratulate him. This time, The Northern Wei Empire had deliberately arranged for him to fight with Wu Changyu in order to suppress the prestige of the Thunderblaze Empire. But now it was simply the opposite. On the contrary, it had pushed Leng Shiqi's reputation to the peak. Now he could be considered to be known by everyone in the Northern Wei Empire. At the same time, the atmosphere on the Starfall Empire's side was very harmonious. Naturally, they could see the results of the battle between the Thunderblaze Empire and the Northern Wei Empire. There were 3 people in this room, and they all came from the Starfall Empire. The long-bearded old man sitting in the middle was the strongest person in this trip, Duke Qi, trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. The Northern Wei Empire has lost a lot of face. The one-eyed man on the right of Duke Qi sneered. Duke Qi squinted his eyes and said, "That king of the Western wilderness is not simple. Investigate carefully." Yes. A skinny young man stood on his left expressionlessly and disappeared without a trace. The competition continued. After the first round, it was the turn of the Northern Wei Empire's Imperial Hall of Worship and the Starfall Empire's Sky Devil Palace's experts. Leng Shiqi stayed here to watch the battle. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat as he felt that someone was spying on him. He immediately spread out his senses, but he couldn't find any clues. Deep underground outside the Marshall Field, 3 people in black were operating a small formation together. A skull with half black and half bright floated in the middle of the 3 people. The imprint is above average. Let's wait for the result. Chapter 853. Leng Shiqi did not pay too much attention to it. He had just defeated Wu Changyu, so it was normal for some people to spy on him. The next battle was very exciting. Both sides were very close in strength, unlike Leng Shiqi and Wu Changyu, who were done in a few moves. The 2 of them fought until the sky turned dark, causing the cultivators outside to be extremely excited. In the blink of an eye, they had already forgotten about Wu Changyu's defeat. Fortunately, the experts from the Northern Wei Empire managed to win the match, and managed to salvage some of the Northern Wei Empire's face. Their battle also ignited everyone's interest, and they looked forward to the next battle of the Sky Origin Realm. This time, there were a total of 35 Sky Origin Realm experts, including Leng Shiqi and Meng Tiantian. One of them had a bye in the first round, so there were 17 battles in the first round. The Northern Wei Empire had scheduled these 17 battles to be completed in 4 days, so there would only be 4 battles today. Next, the old man also made his move and defeated an expert from the Imperial Beast House. The Thunderfire Empire won 2 battles today, and everyone was happy. After that, everyone returned to the inn, where Leng Shiqi continued to meditate and comprehend the power of the 5 elements. Pain so painful. All the bones in his body felt as if they were broken. The young man opened his eyes with difficulty and found himself curled up in a dark corner of a prison. The prison was filled with a foul stench, and there seemed to be a trace of blood mixed in the stench. The young man seemed to be used to it, because he had been brought here for a long time. As for how long it had been, he did not know. There was not a single ray of sunlight here, so he did not know how long it had been. He still remembered that there were 20 to 30 people like him back then. And this small prison was packed to the brim. But now he was the only one left. Every once in a while, they would be forced to drink some strange liquid. Every time they drank it, they would be in unbearable pain. It was an unimaginable pain. Some people lost their lives in that extreme pain. Gradually, the young man was the only one left in the prison. Not long ago, he was brought out and tied to a hard rock. Lying on it, he felt a chill seeping into his body from his back, causing him to shudder. In front of him stood 3 expressionless people. They seemed to be expressionless, as if their faces were fake. They looked very scary. The youth did not resist. He knew that resistance was useless. "Let's begin," the person in the middle said. His voice was as stiff as a dead person's. The fingers of the 2 people on the left and right were as black as ink. Suddenly, they lengthened by a few inches. Wisps of black chi swirled around them as they pierced into the young man's ribs. "Ah!" the youth screamed, but strangely he didn't bleed at all. The 2 men opened 2 buttons on both sides of his body and took out a strange object each. That thing looked like a small heart, beating twice from time to time. The color of the hearts in their hands was different. One was black, while the other was light blue. The young man didn't know what they were going to do. He could only rely on his tenacious will to support himself. Then they placed the two hearts into the young man's body. Finally, one of them chanted and formed a series of black seals. The young man's body immediately began to twitch violently. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices and his eyes turned white. Then he suddenly stopped moving. It seemed that he had died. The 3 of them were already used to this and remained expressionless. "Carry him away," the man in the middle said and turned to leave. But the young man's body suddenly straightened. He actually came back to life. The youth was panting heavily while the other 3 stared with wide eyes, their faces filled with disbelief. The man in the middle finally had an expression. He immediately shouted in surprise, "We did it! Quickly report to the Holy Master." The young man was confused. He didn't know why he didn't die. He quickly saw the Holy Master that the 3 of them were talking about. It was a white-haired old man, but the old man's eyes were very strange. One of his eyes was endless black. It was like a whirlpool in hell that could suck away a person's soul. The other eye was filled with countless stars. It was as if there was a universe in his eyes. What was even stranger was that when the young man saw the Holy Master, he felt an inexplicable sense of closeness. "Very good." The Holy Master stared at the young man for a while and nodded in satisfaction. The young man was confused. The Holy Master suddenly reached out to grab the young man. Whoosh! Lung Shiqi suddenly woke up from his dream. Immediately his expression changed. All kinds of emotions flashed through his eyes. The golden light behind his head shone brightly. It was a sign that he had activated the power of his primordial spirit to the extreme. How could he be dreaming? He clearly remembered that he was comprehending the power of the 5 elements. How could he suddenly fall asleep and have a strange dream? Lung Shiqi was now at the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm. His spiritual power was far stronger than ordinary sky origin realm cultivators. Sleeping and dreaming were very unfamiliar to him. Ever since he came to this world, the number of times he had slept could be counted on one hand. So why did he suddenly fall asleep while cultivating today? There must be something wrong. Lung Shiqi fully activated his primordial spirit. Half of the way capital was in his perception, but he couldn't find anything strange. Then he remembered that when he was in the arena, he felt that someone was secretly spying on him. The spying person might be trying to secretly do something. Could it be Meng Tiantian? Lung Shiqi was the first to suspect Meng Tiantian. If there was anyone who could make him fall asleep in a dream, it seemed that other than the mysterious Meng Tiantian, no one could do it. The key was that the dream was too real. It didn't seem like an illusion. The boy's confusion, hesitation, and fear were similar to what Lung Shiqi experienced. Especially the Divine Lord who appeared at the end. His eyes were scary, but there was also a sense of familiarity. It was too strange. Instead of saying that it was a dream, it was more like a memory. Thinking of this, Lung Shiqi was shocked. He suddenly realized that there was a problem that he had never cared about before, and that was the memory of his current body. When he woke up, he was already on the Blood Fog Island. He had asked Yushu and Delta Orgi before, but they didn't have any memories before coming to the Blood Fog Island. Therefore, Lung Shiqi had always thought that the people of the Blood Clothing Pavilion had erased their previous memories. At that time they hadn't cultivated yet, so erasing their memories wasn't troublesome. After that, Lung Shiqi didn't deliberately search for the memory of the original body, because he felt that it was meaningless. When he awakened the bloodline of the Star Clan and the Dark Shadow Clan in his body, he realized that he should be related to the Nether Temple. Therefore, he began to collect information about the Nether Temple. From the looks of it, the things that happened in the dream just now might have been the original memories of this body. Chapter 854. If that was the case, why did this memory appear out of nowhere? And it happened right after Lung Shiqi sensed that someone was spying on him. This made Lung Shiqi even more vigilant. He felt that someone was watching him recently. However, this was also within his expectations. He changed his name in the Western Desolate Province and came to participate in the All-Spirit Gathering openly. His purpose was to lure someone out. That was the Nether Temple. When he was still in the imperial capital, he heard eunuch Gao mention the name, Lung Shiqi, in the hall of the Nether Temple. Coincidentally, he also wanted to find people from the Nether Temple, so he used himself as bait. The current situation was most likely caused by the people from the Nether Temple in the dark. However, the enemy was in the dark while he was in the light. Moreover, those people were very good at hiding, so he could not find them in a short time. This body of mine has the bloodline of both the Star Clan and the Dark Shadow Clan. The Nether Temple and the Dark Shadow Clan are inextricably linked. The Nether Temple is even controlled by the Dark Shadow Clan. In the dream, I seemed to be a test subject. In the end, I was the only one who survived. Who was the Saint Master? What did he do to the original me? How did I get caught by the Bloodcloth Pavilion and thrown away on the Blood Mist Island? A series of questions appeared in Lung Shiqi's mind. When he recalled the eyes of the Saint Master, he could not help but tremble. One of the Saint Master's eyes was dark, while the other was bright. It was clearly the sign of having both the bloodline of the Star Clan and the Dark Shadow Clan. Lung Shiqi thought of a possibility. The Saint Master might not have much time left, or he might have other purposes. So he wanted to create a person with both bloodlines. Then he would take over the body. In other words, Lung Shiqi's original body was a tool. However, something happened and it was lost. In the end, it was found by the Bloodcloth Pavilion and thrown away on the Blood Mist Island. The Blood Mist Island was a small secret territory that the Bloodcloth Pavilion temporarily opened. Therefore, the Nether Temple could not find this body even after searching the entire continent. Of course, all this was just Lung Shiqi's guess. As for whether it was true or not, he had to ask the people of the Bloodcloth Pavilion first. He immediately entered the underworld and contacted Formless through the underworld lamp. Wu Yan Ghost Monarch appeared and Wuxiang asked, "My dear disciple, what's the matter?" "Master, I want to know who brought me to Blood Mist Island," Lung Shiqi said in a deep voice. "This?" Wuxiang paused for a moment. "I'm not sure about this either. It was all arranged by the Pavilion Lord himself. The Pavilion Master of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, Hateful Blade." Lung Shiqi frowned. This was going to be troublesome. Since he had become the king of the Western Wilderness without authorization, his relationship with the blood-robed pavilion had already been strained. It would be impossible for him to directly ask Hateful Blade about it. This matter could only be discussed at length. "I heard that you defeated Wu Changyu of the Monster Execution Department at the Myriad Spirit Flourishing Assembly. TSK, even I, your master, am probably no match for you now." Wu Xiang took the initiative to change the topic. The battle with the Lung Shiqi had not ended for long, and the Blood Garment Pavilion had already received the news. The intelligence network was indeed powerful. The two of them chatted for a while, and then parted. Wu Xiang could not get any information from him. Lung Shiqi was immediately placed in an absolute passive position. In this situation he could only take one step at a time. As the saying went, since he was already here, he should take things as they came. Sooner or later, the other party would make a move, and when they made a move, there was a chance that they would expose their flaws. After stabilizing his mind, Lung Shiqi closed his eyes and began to comprehend the power of the 5 elements again. He did not dare to stop for even a moment. This matter made him feel a sense of urgency. Although he was now very strong and could be ranked in the upper tier of the Heaven Origin stage, it was still not enough. In the next few days, Lung Shiqi did not participate in the Myriad Spirit Flourishing Assembly. He had already entered the next round, so he might as well use this time to cultivate. The 3 days of competition quickly ended. Unexpectedly, the old man from the Thunderfire dynasty was defeated. Xian Haoying and Shui Liuli both defeated their opponents. However, the old man seemed to be in a good mood. He was still cheerful. In addition, Meng Tian, who Lung Shiqi was more concerned about, also defeated a Heaven Origin stage opponent. She and Lung Shiqi were both in the unity of Heaven and Man realm. These two people were the most talked about recently. After all, it was too abnormal for the weak to defeat the strong. Coincidentally, they were both from the Thunderfire dynasty. Many people even thought that they were a good match. Lung Shiqi did not care about this. There were still 18 experts left. The Thunderfire dynasty had 4 including Meng Tian, the Starfall dynasty had 5, and the remaining 9 were from the Northern Wei dynasty. In the past few days, many people from the Northern Wei dynasty had been defeated. However, they had too many people. In the end, the number of people still made up the majority. At the same time, the Northern Wei dynasty had announced their opponents in advance. This way, they could prepare for their opponents. Leng Shiqi's next opponent was the Acacia sect from the Starfall dynasty. The Acacia sect was not very popular in the Starfall dynasty. Their strength barely squeezed into the Six Paths demon realm, but they were at the bottom. This sect mainly used the method of gathering yin to nourish yang to increase their cultivation. They were despised by the world. However, they had many followers. Moreover, there were some officials and nobles who secretly asked for medicine. Because of their complicated relationships, the sect had been passed down until now. Leng Shiqi's opponent was the Acacia sect's sect master, young Master Acacia. He was a Heaven Origin late-stage expert, and was very strong. Xian Haoying specially sent someone to bring him information about young Master Acacia. She hoped that Leng Shiqi's chances of winning would be higher. In fact, Xian Haoying and the others felt that Leng Shiqi's chances of winning were not high. Last time, he defeated Wu Changyu, who was at the Heaven Origin middle stage. However, it did not mean that his strength was comparable to a Heaven Origin late-stage expert. Moreover, there were differences between Heaven Origin late-stage experts. For example, Blood Beast sects Xiepingyu and Situ Huanshu were both at the Heaven Origin late stage, but there was a difference in strength between them. Young Master Acacia was the sect master of a top sect. He enjoyed countless resources and had an entire sect's inheritance to cultivate. His strength was definitely very strong. In Xian Haoying's view, as long as Leng Shiqi did not lose in an ugly manner, his name would be enough to shake the continent. Leng Shiqi did not say anything. After reading the information about young Master Acacia, he already had a plan in mind. If he encountered an expert like the Imperial Beast Camp's sect master, he would most likely lose if he did not use his full strength. However, his opponent was young Master Acacia, who cultivated a heterogeneous demonic cultivation method. "Your Highness, someone wants to see you." At this time, Ban Ning's voice came from outside the door. Leng Shiqi subconsciously wanted to refuse, but the scene in front of him suddenly changed. He was in the middle of a sparkling lake. The water splashed and condensed into a graceful figure. "Don't you want to see me?" The person who came was Meng Tian. Chapter 855. Leng Shiqi's primordial spirit moved and left the illusion. He opened the door and saw Meng Tian standing at the door. "So it's Miss Meng, please come in." Meng Tian smiled. "Thank you for opening the door for me, Western Desolate King." Even though she said that, she still walked in on her own accord. Leng Shiqi waved his hand and Ban Ning's face was filled with admiration. He bowed and left with a strange smile. Leng Shiqi and Meng Tian didn't have much interaction. The last time they met was in the capital of the Thunderflame dynasty. The 10,000 Laws sect came to celebrate the late Emperor Lei Qingjuan's birthday. It was at that time that he saw how terrifying Meng Tian was, so he didn't know the purpose of Meng Tian's visit. Who knew that the first thing Meng Tian said after sitting down would shock Leng Shiqi? "Your cultivation of the 5-god flowing light art isn't very good." In this world, the only one who knew that he cultivated the 5-god flowing light art was Oziu. How did Meng Tian know? "Don't be nervous, because the cultivation method I cultivate is the illusion heavenly spirit art," Meng Tian explained. Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed. He had obtained the inheritance of the 5-god flowing light art in the illusion spirit secret realm. This cultivation method was actually a part of the Divine Illusion Palace's strongest cultivation method, the Divine Illusion Spirit Art. The Divine Illusion Spirit Art had 3 parts. They were the 5-god flowing light art, the Illusory World Art, and the Illusion Heavenly Spirit Art. The 5-god flowing light art was obtained by Leng Shiqi. The Illusory World Art was with Oziu. As for the last part, it was said that it was obtained by an expert hundreds of years ago. Later on, Leng Shiqi also went to inquire about it, but no one knew who that person was. Who would have thought that it would end up in the 10,000 Laws sect? Moreover, these three cultivation methods had a certain connection with each other. Cultivators could indeed sense it. No wonder Meng Tiantian knew that he cultivated the five God-flowing light art. Meng Tiantian said, "You should understand now. The illusory heavenly spirit technique is in the mysterious 10,000 Laws sect. Back then, it was obtained by the previous sect master. After that, he entered the mysterious 10,000 Laws sect, so this technique was naturally left behind in the sect. The illusory heavenly spirit technique is extremely difficult to cultivate. Currently, in the entire mysterious 10,000 Laws sect, only the sect master and I have successfully cultivated it." Leng Shiqi understood. He also knew Meng Tiantian's goal. She wanted to gather all three techniques and recreate the divine dream spirit art. Leng Shiqi had once had such a plan. He and Oziyu had already exchanged cultivation techniques. At this moment, the last part was right in front of him. Of course, he also wanted to obtain the final divine dream spirit art. But Leng Shiqi still shook his head and said, "What's the point of telling me this?" Your Highness the Western Wasteland King is asking the obvious." Meng Tiantian moved closer to Leng Shiqi and smiled sweetly. "Could it be that Prince doesn't want the divine dream spirit technique? It's rumored that the divine dream spirit technique is a transcendent 10th level cultivation technique. It's rare in the world, so I naturally want it. But even if you and I exchange cultivation techniques, we're still lacking one. With our current strength, it's meaningless." At the beginning, Meng Tiantian took the initiative to say that he cultivated the five gods flowing light technique. Then, she might not know that he also cultivated the 1,000 revolutions illusory world technique. It was true that there was a connection between cultivation techniques, but it could be hidden. Just like how Meng Tiantian clearly cultivated the illusory heavenly spirit technique, but Leng Shiqi did not sense it. "Don't deceive yourself anymore." Meng Tiantian's smile disappeared. "Since I was able to find you, I naturally came prepared. You have two cultivation techniques on you. If you and I exchange, we can both obtain the divine dream spirit technique. I won't let you suffer a loss. You can name your conditions." "Really? Really?" Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. Meng Tiantian's determination was quite big. Thinking about it, anyone who saw a 10th level cultivation technique in front of them would be moved. He did not suffer a loss by exchanging the five gods flowing light technique with Meng Tiantian. As for the value of the 1,000 revolutions illusory world technique, it was far more than just a high-grade cultivation technique. It would be a waste if he did not take advantage of such a business that came knocking on his door. Furthermore, the divine dream spirit technique could indeed increase his combat strength in the shortest time possible, giving him a better chance of entering the Ashen Aeon world. And his ultimate goal of entering the Ashen Aeon world was to find an opportunity to comprehend the power of the five elements. The Myriad Laws sect was the most powerful spiritual cultivation sect on the Starfall continent, so it definitely had a large number of five elemental spells. Leng Shiqi said, "It's very simple. I need some five elemental spells. I want every one of them. At the very least, they have to be at the 6th level." What a big appetite. Meng Tiantian was immediately displeased. First of all, spiritual cultivation techniques were very rare, much less those above the 6th level. Even in the Myriad Laws sect, one needed to be a successor disciple, and a large number of sect contributions to be qualified to obtain them. How could they be found on the side of the road? "I do have the 1,000 revolutions illusory world art. You know the importance of this cultivation technique the best, so a mere 5 elemental spell is nothing." Leng Shiqi did not budge an inch. "You." Meng Tiantian gritted her teeth and hesitated for a moment before saying, "I mainly cultivate illusions. Although I cultivate some 5 elemental spells, they aren't many. However, I can give you a portion of the Myriad Laws secret record." Myriad Laws secret record. That was the cornerstone cultivation technique of the Myriad Laws sect. She can even take out such a thing. Leng Shiqi exclaimed inwardly. What a good fellow. "I believe you have heard of the Myriad Laws secret record. There are a large number of spiritual cultivation techniques recorded in it. I can only give you a small portion. That's all." If you are willing, then we have a deal. If you are unwilling, then forget it. Meng Tiantian's temper seemed to rise as she spoke impatiently. Deal. Leng Shiqi readily agreed. The Myriad Law's secret record was definitely something good. It definitely had 5 elemental spells. As for the grade, it probably couldn't be high. After all, it was only a small portion. As long as it had the effect of drawing parallels, it didn't matter. Then the two exchanged 2 jade slips and got what they wanted. It could be considered a happy ending. Since it's like this, then I will take my leave. I wish Western Wasteland King success soon. Meng Tiantian pretended to leave. I want to ask one last question. Putting away the jade slip, Leng Shiqi turned his head and asked. Perhaps because she was about to get the divine fantasy spirit technique, Meng Tiantian smiled and said, Ask away. You, who are you? Meng Tiantian's face stiffened. Western Wasteland King, what do you mean? This little girl doesn't understand. I advise Western Wasteland King that there is no need to understand. Finished speaking, Meng Tiantian's figure disappeared like a bubble. Leng Shiqi's face was heavy. The transaction just now seemed to go smoothly, but it was strange everywhere. It was as if he didn't do anything and got the divine fantasy spirit technique, and the Myriad Law's secret record. Moreover, it was the other party who delivered it to him. How was this a transaction? It was a free gift. How could there be such a good thing when a pie fell from the sky? It wasn't that Leng Shiqi was suspicious. As the saying goes, one who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Meng Tiantian was definitely not as simple as she appeared. Her goal might not be just the divine fantasy spirit technique, but Leng Shiqi couldn't think of anything else. He could only be more vigilant against Meng Tiantian. After Meng Tiantian left, she crushed the 2 jade slips Leng Shiqi gave her. She had clearly spent a lot of effort to exchange for these 2 cultivation techniques. At this moment, they were like trash in his eyes. Her eyes were deep, but they shone with 9 colors. She muttered, You are quite smart. Giving you the divine fantasy spirit technique should allow you to enter the Ashen Aeon world. You are the most outstanding seed. If you can't do this, it will be too disappointing. Chapter 856. 2 days later, Leng Shiqi once again came to the martial field. He was about to welcome his second battle in the Myriad Spirit Gathering. Because he had defeated Wu Changyu a few days ago, he received a lot of cheers when he walked in today. To the most ordinary spirit cultivator, the estrangement between the imperial dynasty was not that important to them. They only knew how to respect the strong. Leng Shiqi saw his opponent, the Joyous Union sect's young master Joyous Union. At first glance, the Joyous Union sect's young master Joyous Union was a graceful and elegant young master. However, when he looked down, he discovered that this person's chest was surging with waves. She was actually a woman. Everyone called her young master, and the report did not specifically state the gender of the other party. Leng Shiqi also thought that the Joyous Union sect's young master Joyous Union was a man. Now that he saw her, Leng Shiqi was a little surprised. It seemed that the Joyous Union sect not only collected yin to supplement yang, but also collected yang to supplement yin. The Joyous Union sect's young master's pair of beautiful eyes seemed to have 10,000 kinds of amorous feelings. Just a casual glance was enough to make countless people fall head over heels. She sized up Leng Shiqi, and her eyes suddenly lit up as if she had seen a delicacy. Your Highness Western Desolation King is actually still a virgin. Presumably, you still do not know how it feels. Why don't you let me help you? The Joyous Union sect's young master's face was like a peach blossom. Her eyes were filled with spring, and her voice was filled with temptation. Seeing this scene, everyone's blood began to boil. The temperature of the martial field unknowingly began to gradually rise. However, Leng Shiqi's soul formation had reached the large success stage, so he naturally ignored this little trick. He sneered and walked into the illusion array. The Joyous Union sect's young master's eyes flashed coldly as she secretly said, You don't know what's good for you. I'll make you suffer before you submit. In the illusion array, she saw a towering Vairocana Buddha. Endless Buddhist light filled the illusion. The Joyous Union sect's young master was a demonic cultivator. She immediately felt as if her entire body was being burned, and the pain was unbearable. Immediately after, Lung Shiqi did not hesitate to make the first move. Countless 4-phases sword qi filled his body, and his body had a strange rhythm that was unfathomable. The sword qi scattered. The entire place was enveloped in a sword domain. Young Lord Joyful Union disdainfully smiled. This sort of offensive might be enough to deal with trash like Wu Changyu, but it's still far from enough to deal with me. She immediately made her move and uttered strange words. In an instant, a strange wave of energy erupted and the weather changed. Everything around her was twisting and trembling. Huan Gongzi wanted to use strength to suppress Lung Shiqi, and let him know that the strength of a heavenly Yuan late-stage cultivator was invincible. Lung Shiqi's 4-phases sword qi was instantly shattered. Seeing this, young Master Huan couldn't help but smile. The unity of heaven and man realm was indeed the unity of heaven and man realm. Even if he had comprehended the power of the 4 phases, he still wouldn't be able to make up for the gap between the heaven and man realm late stage. A sword intent soared into the sky. The 4 Taoist swords of earth, water, wind, and fire stood in the air. Behind Lung Shiqi, the violent power of the 4 Taoist swords rushed forward. All the spiritual energy in this space was pushed aside, making it impossible to dodge. The 4 elements sword Tao erupted with all its strength, causing young Master Concord's complexion to change. Not bad. No wonder Wu Changyu took the initiative to admit defeat. You do have the strength to do so. Young Lord Joyful Union took a step forward. Boundless mysterious divine light appeared around her body as the world of pure bliss descended. Here, countless fairies danced gracefully. It was a soul-stirring beauty. Their clothes didn't even cover their bodies. As they danced, spring light flooded the area. Decadent sounds that made one unable to extricate themselves surrounded them. Lung Shiqi seemed to be about to fall, and the power of the 4 elements behind him began to waver. Men really are all the same. Young Lord Joyful Union's strength erupted. The 9 heavens goddesses' Dharma idol appeared, but this 9 heavens goddesses' clothes were half undone. Then she slapped down with her palm. The surrounding wind and clouds surged, and thunder exploded. Lung Shiqi's figure was about to be submerged under this terrifying palm. However, while young Lord Joyful Union was displaying her might, she didn't know that there was another Lung Shiqi coldly watching from the sidelines. Or rather, this was the real Lung Shiqi. At this moment, a 9-colored light appeared in his eyes, and a majestic divine soul emerged. The target of young Lord Joyful Union's bombardment was, in fact, a mass of air. In fact, when young Lord Joyful Union entered the illusory array set up by the Northern Wei Empire, she had already fallen into Lung Shiqi's illusion. 9th rank illusion technique, illusory sky. This was a high-level illusion technique recorded in the divine illusion spirit art. By setting up an illusory dreamland, as long as the caster's mental strength was high enough, even a profound comprehending realm powerhouse could fall for it. Lung Shiqi's divine soul was very powerful, and young Lord Joyful Union cultivated a devil art that went against the heavens, so her mental strength was not particularly stable. In addition, Lung Shiqi had a cultivation method that could restrain devil arts, causing young Lord Joyful Union to fall into the illusion without knowing it. This battle seemed strange and ridiculous in the eyes of the people outside. From the beginning, Lung Shiqi had not moved at all, while young Lord Joyful Union was like a madman, talking to himself and fighting a battle of wits and courage with the air, while bombarding an empty place. From time to time, he would let out a strange laugh, which confused the people watching. They thought that young Lord Joyful Union might have gone mad. Only those heavenly origin stage powerhouses had heavy expressions. They could see that young Lord Joyful Union had fallen into an illusion. Even before the battle began, he had fallen into it. What kind of powerful illusion was this? Meng Tiantian had also won the previous battle with an illusion, which made them somewhat afraid of Meng Tiantian. However, Lung Shiqi had clearly defeated Wu Changyu with the 4 phases sword Dao, and this battle revealed an even more terrifying illusion technique than Meng Tiantian's. Young Lord Joyful Union was a genuine heavenly origin late-stage powerhouse, and was also the sect leader of Joyful Union sect. He had countless secret techniques, Yet he was played by Leng Shiqi from beginning to end. What was the upper limit of his strength? If they were the ones fighting Leng Shiqi, would they have the confidence to resist such a powerful illusion technique? Some people were confident, but most of them knew that they would not be able to stop it. At this moment, Leng Shiqi had become a huge obstacle in their hearts. They were not surprised by the result. After they saw that young Lord Joyful Union had fallen into an illusion, they already knew the result of the battle. Leng Shiqi obviously still had some strength left while maintaining the illusion. Young Lord Joyful Union was full of flaws. As long as Leng Shiqi used the 4 phases Sword Dao, he could win at any time. He did not do so because he wanted to show the world his strength. But in fact they were wrong. Although Leng Shiqi had the help of the system and cultivated the 9-step illusion technique, illusory dream sky, to the perfection stage overnight, his opponent this time was far stronger than what outsiders could see. In order to keep young Lord Joyful Union in the illusion, he had done his best. Without exposing his full strength, he could only use ordinary spiritual skills. In that case, not only would he not be able to defeat young Lord Joyful Union, but he would also give young Lord Joyful Union a chance to escape from the illusory dream sky. Therefore, he did not make a move. He did not expect that such an action would make others mistakenly think that he was pretending. It was not until Leng Shiqi's soul power was about to be exhausted that he ended the illusion. When young Lord Joyful Union came back to his senses, his eyes were filled with horror. At the same time, he felt extremely humiliated. It would have been fine if he had been defeated in a head-on battle, but he had been fooled by Leng Shiqi for a long time. Leng Shiqi had even stepped on his face to awe the world. Naturally, he hated Leng Shiqi to the bone. King of the Western Wilderness, today's humiliation will be returned in the future. Young Lord Joyful Union left behind a ruthless sentence and left the arena. Leng Shiqi shrugged his shoulders indifferently. The two of them were in the Starfall Dynasty and Thunderblaze Dynasty respectively. They might never meet again in the future. By winning this battle, Leng Shiqi would enter the top 9 in the Tian Yuan realm. As long as he won another battle, he would definitely obtain the qualifications to enter the Ashen Yuan realm. Chapter 857. Lu Xingji was born in Wuxia City X. His parents were both teachers and gave him the name Xingji. Presumably, he would become a teacher in the future. His upbringing was very strict, and he was bound by many rules from a young age. Growing up in such an environment, he gradually developed an introverted personality. From a young age, he didn't have many good friends around him and his personality became more and more introverted. During puberty, he didn't experience the so-called rebellious period, and was a good child in the eyes of his parents. However, when he became an adult, he began to rebel. He didn't follow his parents' wishes and became a teacher. Instead, he was admitted to a public office. At first, his parents were furious. Lu Xingji didn't say a word in the face of their anger, and let them beat and scold him. It was only under the persuasion of his relatives and friends that they reluctantly gave up. Public office and teaching were both secure jobs, so there was nothing wrong with it. However, his relationship with his parents became much colder from then on. With Lu Xingji's personality, he ran into a wall in public office. He could only do some tiring and miscellaneous work that didn't give him a chance to perform. His original life might have been like this, but one day he fell in love with a girl. However, that girl's identity was noble and far from being worthy of a small office worker like him. From then on, Lu Xingji changed. Up until now, he had never lived for himself. He wanted to live for himself once and pursue the person he loved. Even if he failed, he had a great time. He began to try to learn how to communicate and slowly participated in various activities, parties and drinking parties. He had never drunk before and found that his alcohol tolerance was far beyond ordinary people. Slowly, he formed a consensus with the colleagues around him. His work became smoother and smoother, and he became more tactful. In just a few years, he sat in a position that took others more than 10 years to fight for. Unfortunately, that girl couldn't be with him in the end. To Leng Shiqi's surprise, he wasn't that sad. His heart had become much more complicated and the word love had become dispensable. His life seemed to be quite good. Although he had experienced many twists and turns, at least now he could be considered a successful person. It seemed that God didn't have eyes. Lu Xingji's health deteriorated due to frequent drinking until he was diagnosed with stomach cancer. After receiving the diagnosis, Lu Xingji first sighed, and then smiled. He directly resigned from public office and didn't contact his parents. He took all his savings and began to travel around. Up until now he had never left City X except for business trips. Wuxia was so big, and he wanted to see it for himself. At the same time, it was rare for him to relax and become interested in all kinds of literature on the internet. Half a year later, Lu Xingji passed away in an ordinary town. In this life, he did not leave behind any trace. He had once hated, and had once struggled to survive. He was used to the mutual deception between people, and was used to the injustice of the world. In fact, in the end he would only turn into a handful of yellow soil. However, not long after, he opened his eyes again. At this moment, he was already on Bloodmist Island. Shua, Leng Shiqi woke up from his dream again. In his dream, he saw his past life. Ever since he came to this world, he had never thought about his past life because there was nothing worth remembering. Most importantly, he had fallen asleep again at some point and even dreamed of his previous life. Not long ago, Leng Shiqi had defeated young Master He Huan using an illusion technique. At this time he had fallen into a deep sleep. However, Leng Shiqi knew that he had not fallen into an illusion technique. Rather than calling the dream an illusion, it would be better to call it an awakening of his memories. Last time it was the memory of this body. This time, it was the memory of his past life. Something's wrong. Leng Shiqi suddenly realized that something was wrong. In this life, his body originally belonged to that young man, but his soul came from Earth. Even if someone was secretly awakening the memory of his past life, it should be the memory of the young man's past life, not his past life's memory. What the hell is going on? Who was it that was secretly causing trouble? For some reason, Leng Shiqi suddenly thought of Oziu's words. His Tianji had disappeared in the north. After he came to the Northern Wei Empire, there were indeed many accidents and unforeseen events. He had taken the initiative to create havoc in the Blood Beast sect and kill Xie Pingyu and Tian Qixing. However, in the process he had encountered the mysterious beast sovereign. The Blood Beast sect was also full of secrets. After that, someone had tampered with him. Meng Tiantian had also inexplicably delivered the Divine Fantasy Spirit technique and 10,000 method secret record to him. All of this was full of strangeness. Leng Shiqi could not help but feel a trace of worry. Could it be that the Northern Wei Empire was really his burial ground? He suddenly shook his head. He felt that he could not be disturbed like this anymore. He thought about it carefully. What were the similarities between the two times he entered the dream? In the few days between the two dreams, Leng Shiqi had been cultivating in his room, and did not go out. After today's battle, this situation happened after he returned. Thinking of this, Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed. It seemed that as long as he stayed here, nothing would happen. Every time he appeared, he would be tampered with. Now it seemed that this was very likely. Leng Shiqi guessed that it was very likely that it was someone from the Nether Temple. The strange thing was, why was the other party trying to awaken his memory? It's too passive to always be like this. I have to use some methods to force them out. Leng Shiqi's eyes narrowed, flashing with a dangerous light. 3 days later, the second round of the competition ended. There were only 9 people left in the Heaven Origin region. There were 3 people from each of the 3 empires. Xian Haoying, who was at the pinnacle of the Heaven Origin region, was naturally there. What shocked everyone was that Leng Shiqi and Meng Tiantian, who were at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage, were also in the top 9. The Northern Wei Empire's 3 people were Fairy Luoying, sect leader of the Big Dipper sect, Kong Jianba, and sect leader of the Imperial Beast Abode, Luo Lu. The first 2 were at the pinnacle of the Heaven Origin region, while Luo Lu was at the late stage of the Heaven Origin region. In other words, the late stage of the Heaven Origin region was the lowest standard. Looking at it this way, Leng Shiqi and Meng Tiantian were truly monstrous geniuses. Some people could not help but sigh. The 2 of them were from the Thunderblaze Empire. It was obvious that the Thunderblaze Empire was going to prosper. In the next round, regardless of whether they won or lost, they would be famous throughout the world. As for Meng Tiantian's victory, Leng Shiqi had already expected it, and his next opponent had also been determined. It was the Northern Wei Empire's Big Dipper sect leader, Kong Jianba. Not only was he at the pinnacle of the Heaven Origin region, but his physical strength was also incomparably strong. He was known as the #1 body cultivator in the world. He had once killed a rank 7 great demon with a single punch, shocking countless people. The most frightening thing about demonic beasts was their powerful bodies. However, Kong Jianba had crushed him in this aspect. Leng Shiqi felt a headache when he found out that his opponent was Kong Jianba. Kong Jianba was a body cultivator, so his mental strength was definitely not strong. He could use illusions to win. However, he had already used illusions to deal with Prince Hehuan, so Kong Jianba would definitely be on guard. This battle would not be easy. Chapter 858. However, even if they lost this battle, they still had a chance. There were a total of 9 people, and 5 of them had the qualifications to enter the Ashen Aeon realm. The rule set by the Northern Wei Empire was that one person would be given a bye, while the other 8 would fight in pairs. The winner would directly obtain the qualifications to enter the Ashen Aeon realm. As for the loser, they would fight for the last spot in the arena. The loser was the sect master of the Imperial Beast Abode, Luo Lu. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the Northern Wei Empire wanted to protect Luo Lu. Luo Lu's cultivation level was the lowest among the remaining 3 people from the Northern Wei Empire. If he were to fight with Xian Haoying or the Starfall Empire's Duke Qi, he would definitely lose. If he were to fight with the loser for a spot, even if it was a 1 in 5 fight, his chances would be higher. Among the 9 people, Xian Haoying, Duke Qi, Fairy Luoying, and Kong Jianba were all at the peak of the Heaven Origin realm. The 4 of them did not encounter each other, so it was certain that they would enter the Ashen Aeon realm. As for the last spot, the competition was the most intense. The next day was also the last day of the Myriad Spirit Gathering. Apart from the Heaven Origin realm, the battles for the other realms would end at the same time. There were more than 100 low-level spirit cultivators who could be listed on the Northern Wei Empire's mortal ranking. In fact, it was the same as the Thunderblaze Empire's Hidden Dragon ranking. They were all young geniuses. The winners of the Spirit Pulse realm and Spirit Aperture realm could obtain large amounts of cultivation resources. Those at the Spirit Astral realm and Heaven Man Unity realm could receive guidance from Heaven Origin realm experts. Only the top 5 of the Heaven Origin realm had the qualifications to enter the Ashen Aeon realm. The Ashen Aeon realm was left behind by the Ashen Aeon Sword Sage. Apart from the Northern Wei Empire's upper echelons, no one knew what was inside. Therefore, the entire world's attention was focused on the arena today. Even the Thunderblaze Empire and the Starfall Empire, which were countless miles away, were paying attention to the outcome. After entering the arena, Xian Haoying patted Leng Shiqi's shoulder and said earnestly, "You defeated Wu Changyu and young Master Concord. Your name has already spread far and wide. Relax your mentality. It's a rare opportunity to fight with a peak Heaven Origin realm expert." "I understand." Leng Shiqi nodded humbly. Xian Haoying liked Leng Shiqi's temperament very much. The outside world said that he was arrogant and domineering. After getting along with him for a few days, she felt that although Leng Shiqi's temperament was a little strange, all masters had their own temperament. Moreover, Leng Shiqi was very reasonable and was not as bad as others said. Ever since Leng Shiqi participated in the Myriad Spirit Gathering, no one thought highly of him. This was very similar to Meng Tiantian. On the other hand, the 2 of them were killing all the Sky Origin stage cultivators one after another. Everybody was shocked by what they had seen. Before Leng Shiqi fought with Wu Changyu, everyone thought that he would lose miserably, but in the end he won. It was the same when he fought with young Master Hehuan, and he won again. Today, even if everyone still thought that he could not defeat the Heavenly Dipper sect master, Kong Jianba, they still had a trace of hope in their hearts. What if he won again? Therefore, there were people who opened a bet on Leng Shiqi outside and bet on him to win. If Leng Shiqi knew about this, he would definitely praise this person for being a true warrior, because even he did not have any chance of winning. Unless he used all his strength, he had no hope of defeating Kong Jianba. Just as Xian Haoying said, he could treat Kong Jianba as an excellent sparring partner. This kind of opportunity was not easy to come by. As for the qualification to enter the Ashen Origin world, he planned to snatch it from the arena. The first match of the day was between Fairy Luoying and a Sky Origin stage cultivator from the Starfall dynasty. The result could only be described with one word: easy victory. Fairy Luoying easily defeated her opponent in 2 or 3 moves. In the Northern Wei dynasty, as long as the legendary mystic in Lightning Realm cultivators did not make a move, no one would dare to claim to be first if she said that she was second. Such a powerful beauty was the most attractive. The hundreds of thousands of spirit cultivators in the arena became her admirers. The second match was Leng Shiqi's turn. After entering the illusion, Kong Jianba was the first to speak. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Don't say that I am bullying the younger generation. As long as you can injure me in the slightest, it will be your victory. If someone else had said this, they would have thought that he was underestimating his opponent. However, the person who said this was Kong Jianba. He was the #1 body cultivator in the world. Not only did he have the strength to break through the void, but his physical defense was also invincible. There were not many people in the world who could injure him. Kong Jianba formed a strange seal with his hands. His body suddenly expanded a few times, and the ground beneath his feet shattered inch by inch. His skin also turned into a bronze color, and an enormous aura, like that of a mountain, assaulted the face of everyone present. The phantom of a giant mountain appeared, covering the sky and the sun. Its might was boundless. One of the ultimate techniques of the Heavenly Dipper sect, Lofty Mountain Seal. The Lofty Mountain Seal is known as the strongest defensive spiritual technique in the Falling Star continent. With Kong Jianba's cultivation at the peak of the Sky Origin realm, no one can injure him unless it is a Tongxian realm cultivator. However, after using the Lofty Mountain Seal, his body will turn into a mountain, and his consciousness will be mostly sealed. I understand. He knows that Leng Shiqi's illusion technique is extremely strong, and is not weaker than Meng Tiantian's. Kong Jianba knows that his mental strength is his weakness. It would be better for him to seal a part of his consciousness, and not give Leng Shiqi a chance. That's right. Leng Shiqi can't injure him at all. As long as he can land a punch on Leng Shiqi, victory and defeat will be decided. Leng Shiqi's expression did not change. The Buddhist light around his body shone brightly, and the Vajra unbreakable divine art was displayed. At the moment when the Buddha's light shone, an evil demonic aura rose up. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a 6-armed, 2-winged demon. He was half demon and half Buddha. It was extremely evil. The aura around his body rose again and again, completely surpassing the limits of the unity of heaven and man realm. Not only that, Leng Shiqi's mind moved. Suddenly, boundless netherworld chi rose up in the illusion, and a heavenly gate of hell appeared faintly under the encirclement of countless evil spirits. The gate of hell. Immediately, all of the 9 underworlds' power gathered on Leng Shiqi's body, condensing into an evil spirit's heavy armor. Evil, devil, demon, Buddha, and other completely different powers fused together perfectly on his body. Seeing this scene, the spirit cultivators and the Sky Origin realm cultivators in the martial arts field were all shocked. This Leng Shiqi had been hiding his strength until now. Leng Shiqi suddenly punched out. The terrifying fist intent stirred the void, and a soaring domineering aura filled the heaven and earth, looking down on the world. Kong Jianba crossed his arms and closed his eyes slightly. He did not seem to have any intention of fighting back or dodging. He actually wanted to take this punch head-on. Boom! The tyrant's barrier's fist force landed solidly on Kong Jianba's body. A powerful wave was suddenly emitted, causing the illusion to be distorted to a certain extent. However, what shocked everyone was that Kong Jianba was unscathed. He stood in the same spot without moving an inch, and that terrifying fist energy didn't even move a single hair on his body. For words appeared in everyone's mind. Invincible physical body. Chapter 859. In the Northern Wei Empire, people often heard that Kong Jianba had an invincible body. However, very few people were able to see him in action, so people did not have a concrete idea of what he was talking about. Today, they finally understood what it meant to have an invincible body. Kong Jianba had only used one punch and two punches to end the previous two battles, letting everyone know how terrifying his strength was. Now that they saw how terrifying his defense was, such a person was too abnormal. Leng Shiqi's punch was not weak. Wu Changyu's expression changed when he saw this punch because if he were to face it, he would not be able to withstand it at all. However, this punch did not even shake Kong Jianba's mountain seal. It was clear that Kong Jianba's defense was rare in the world. What was even more abnormal was that even if you hit him, you would not be able to move him. If he hit you, you would either die or be crippled. How could you fight him? This was the strength of a body cultivator. The eyes of many disciples of the Heavenly Dipper sect lit up. Your body is quite strong. It's a pity that you did not enter my Heavenly Dipper sect. Otherwise, I would definitely nurture you. Are you using Xiaohoba's 3 forms of the Tyrant Fist? He was also a body cultivator, but unfortunately, he took the wrong path. Kong Jianba spoke in the tone of a senior talking to a junior. It was as if Xiaohoba, who was guarding a region, was nothing in his eyes. Leng Shiqi held the 1000 Illusion Dao sword and split it into 4. The sword Dao of the 4 elements of earth, water, wind and fire appeared. At the same time, the surrounding mountain range moved horizontally. Flames surged, waves surged and gales rose everywhere. The sharp sword intent and the violent power of the 4 elements surrounded and suppressed Kong Jianba. This time, Kong Jianba remained motionless. He only let out a muffled sound from his mouth. This sound seemed to have triggered some strange power, causing countless lights to appear around his body. All the sword chi and various other powers melted away like clay oxen entering the sea, disappearing without a trace. As expected, it's still not enough. Leng Shiqi sighed inwardly. In fact, after the first attack, he had already noticed that Kong Jianba was not only physically strong. Although the human body had infinite possibilities, it was increasingly difficult to increase the strength of the body towards the end. Leng Shiqi himself had also cultivated a body refining technique, but it had been a long time since he had made any progress. The reason why Kong Jianba's body was so powerful was because Leng Shiqi had sensed a faint trace of the law of earth. The law of weight within the law of earth. He could attack if he advanced, and defend if he retreated. This meant that Kong Jianba had actually begun to touch the edge of the metaphysical realm. Therefore, Leng Shiqi knew very well that if he did not use the power of law, he would not be able to defeat Kong Jianba. If this was just a pure competition, it wouldn't be a big deal for him to reveal some of his moves. However, he didn't know how many pairs of eyes were watching him from behind, so he couldn't reveal too much of his strength. However, Leng Shiqi's fighting spirit surged. Where could he find such a good human punching bag? A wisp of crimson gold flame suddenly erupted from Leng Shiqi's body. This was the crimson gold earth dragon flame, which everyone already knew. However, a bolt of lightning came crashing down from the 9 heavens, merging with the crimson gold earth dragon flames to form a thunder flame dragon that was hundreds of feet long. That's the flaming thunderbolt Yang Manual. The old man exclaimed. Xian Haoying and Shui Liuli also stood up, their surprise no less than the old man's. The flaming thunderbolt Yang Manual was a cultivation technique that only the members of the Thunderbolt dynasty's royal family could cultivate. Only those with extraordinary talent were qualified to cultivate it. The number of members of the royal family who cultivated this cultivation technique could be counted on one hand. How did Leng Shiqi obtain this cultivation technique? Of course, he obtained this cultivation technique from his soul clone, Lei Haoyan. Leng Shiqi possessed the crimson gold earth dragon flame, so cultivating this cultivation technique was twice the result with half the effort. He could also fully unleash the power of the crimson gold earth dragon flame. A dragon's roar reverberated throughout the world as the thunder flame dragon descended with a terrifying killing intent. Unfortunately, the thunder flame dragon rushed into the strange brilliance, but it still did not cause any ripples. Leng Shiqi pointed out a finger, and a dreamlike bubble appeared. Just one look at it would cause one to unconsciously become immersed in it. Grand Dream Thousand Autumn Finger. In the end, those beautiful bubbles were dissolved by the light like bubbles. Is that enough? What's the point if you can't even break through my defensive divine light? Kong Jianba said coldly. Lung Shiqi did not say a word. His forearms formed seals at the same time, and the four elements' true spirits appeared. Waves of origin energy fluctuated, and the four elements formation diagram slowly formed. Seeing this, Kong Jianba's expression finally became somewhat serious. The four elements formation diagram slowly descended, causing the origin energy in this world to boil. Other than the people of the Thunderbolt dynasty, the other experts were all astonished. The four elements formation diagram actually contained the power of heaven and earth. For a spirit cultivator at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage to be able to comprehend such a level of power, it was simply overturning their previous knowledge. Buzz. The four elements formation diagram and the divine light intertwined, causing the illusory space to violently tremble a few times. Following a soft sound, Kong Jianba's defensive divine light was finally broken. But even so, the power of the four elements formation diagram was almost exhausted. The remaining power was not even enough to tickle Kong Jianba. Following that, palm techniques, fist techniques, spear techniques, seal techniques. Lung Shiqi used all the spiritual techniques that he was proficient in, but in the end he could not even force Kong Jianba to take a step back. The divine light behind Lung Shiqi shone brightly, and the power of his divine spirit was pushed to the extreme. The golden power of his divine spirit dyed half the sky. His 6 arms turned into a series of afterimages, countless hand seals flew, and streaks of spirit arts whistled out. In the sky, stars dotted the sky, and on the ground, several arrays appeared, and endless streams of light shuttled back and forth. In an instant, everyone in the illusory space could only see spells that blotted out the sky and covered the sun. Many people directly covered their mouths to prevent themselves from crying out. Not to mention anything else, just this array of attacks made people feel as if it was the end of the world. Of course, in the eyes of the experts, they could see that most of the spells were low to mid-grade spiritual techniques, and there was no threat at all. They were also very shocked, and they were surprised that they suddenly realized that Lung Shiqi seemed to know everything. Swordsmanship, illusions, body refinement, and spells were all proficient. As the saying went, greedy but not proficient. In fact, the higher one's cultivation level, the more one would want to specialize in a certain type of power. For example, the old man specialized in thunder techniques, and Shui Liuli was a water cultivator. Another example was Lung Shiqi's opponent at the moment, an expert who had cultivated his body refinement to the extreme, Kong Jianba. While everyone was shocked, they were also puzzled. How could Lung Shiqi have so many talents, and how could he have so much time to cultivate? One had to know that it took a lot of time to cultivate a certain high-level spiritual technique, and Lung Shiqi had displayed countless spiritual techniques so far. Was he still human? However, when the countless spells landed on Kong Jianba's body, they still could not break through his physical defense. Kong Jianba's heart was in turmoil, but as time passed he became impatient. This was because he saw that Lung Shiqi seemed to have the intention of pestering him, and used all his spiritual techniques, as if he was determined to make him suffer. Kong Jianba saw that Lung Shiqi was about to run out of tricks, and was about to find an opportunity to counterattack to end this boring battle. However, at some point, Lung Shiqi's eyes became misty, and the spells that filled the sky were only left with the 5 elements. A mysterious aura pervaded his body, and with a wave of his hands, he activated the 5 elements in the sky, stirring up heaven and earth. In an instant, 5 huge rings of different colors condensed in midair, and slowly rotated. Chapter 860. The moment the 5 rings were formed, all the energy within a few hundred miles of the arena surged madly. Spiritual chi, elemental energy, origin energy, and even a trace of the laws of heaven and earth. Kong Jianba actually felt a great threat at this moment. He stomped his feet, and an earth dragon flipped over. The vigorous earth energy stirred up the illusion realm. He could not sit and watch Leng Shiqi complete this spiritual technique. Otherwise, he might really lose. Leng Shiqi's eyes shone brightly as he threw a bracelet into the air. It was the bracelet of the minor 5 elements Chaos Grotto Heaven. The people from the Thunderblaze dynasty immediately recognized it. They were even more puzzled. Why would the minor 5 elements Chaos Grotto Heaven be in Leng Shiqi's hands? However, something that shocked and horrified these people immediately happened. Leng Shiqi clenched his fist, and the bracelet shattered. 5 streams of colorful light scattered, and a heart-palpitating energy fluctuation trembled. Xian Haoying, Old Man, and the others almost vomited blood. Leng Shiqi actually destroyed the minor 5 elements Chaos Grotto Heaven. That was the treasure of the Thunderblaze dynasty. There were only a few treasures that could form their own worlds in the entire Starfall continent. Leng Shiqi destroyed it without even blinking. They were not thinking about how Leng Shiqi could obtain the minor 5 elements Chaos Grotto Heaven. Instead, they were dumbfounded. The multicolored light connected with the 5 rings, slowly forming a huge 5-colored ring. The moment the 5-colored ring was formed, it was as if a miraculous power that could seize the heavens and earth appeared. Then, the shock in everyone's eyes suddenly disappeared. On the stage, Leng Shiqi and Kong Jianba vomited blood at the same time. The difference was that Kong Jianba only had a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, while Leng Shiqi vomited a large amount of blood. His body also swayed a few times as if he was on the verge of collapsing. Everyone in the arena was stunned. What was going on? Just a moment ago, the fight was still going well. Now there was nothing left. The 2 people on the stage even vomited blood. Who won? All the cultivators who were at the one with the world level and above were astonished, including Fairy Luoying and High Duke Qi, who were at the peak of the heavenly origin stage. Others might not be able to see it, but they could. The reason for this was because the illusion had been shattered. The illusory realm set up by the Northern Wei Empire was very meticulous. It was able to maintain the fluctuations caused by a battle between profound penetration realm experts, but now it had been shattered. And it was broken by Leng Shiqi, a spirit cultivator at the unity of heaven and man realm. Their only thought was that it was impossible. Most importantly, they didn't know how Leng Shiqi did it. In the end, they did see the 5-colored ring, and they did feel a strange power, but that power flashed and disappeared, and then the illusion collapsed. What happened inside? As for Leng Shiqi and Kong Jianba, it was quite normal for them to vomit blood. They had been using their spiritual power to fight in the illusion. When the illusion suddenly collapsed, they would definitely be injured by the backlash of their spiritual power. It was reasonable to say that Leng Shiqi's soul had already been formed, so he shouldn't have been more injured than Kong Jianba. In fact, he was more affected by the backlash of the 5 elements. In his battle with Kong Jianba, he had used almost all of his spiritual techniques. This was something that had never happened before. Unknowingly, he seemed to have grasped a trace of enlightenment. Especially when he used the 5 elements technique, he could already vaguely see what he was looking for. But it was also somewhat illusory. Thus, he decisively detonated the minor 5 elements Chaos Paradise, staking everything on one throw, drawing the pure 5 elements force within, wanting to succeed in one fell swoop. This was an unprecedented opportunity for him. Perhaps it could be called an epiphany. Unfortunately, just as he was about to succeed, the illusion collapsed. His spiritual power was violently expelled, and the 5 elements force that was close to him suddenly attacked him, causing great damage to his soul. It was all for naught. Leng Shiqi didn't know if he should be happy or sad. If he hadn't fought with Kong Jianba in the illusion, he wouldn't have had the chance to experience this rare epiphany. After all, the illusion was just an illusory array. It couldn't withstand the power of the 5 elements ring and collapsed. This caused Leng Shiqi to fail at the last step. In this attempt, he had ruthlessly destroyed the minor 5 elements chaotic paradise. Without it, it would be extremely difficult for him to comprehend the power of the 5 elements. Fortunately, he had already touched upon a trace of the 5 elements force, so it wasn't a loss. He swallowed a few pills that nourished his spiritual power, and got up to leave. He had lost this match, So he needed to recuperate as soon as possible to prepare for the last spot in the Ashen Ian world. At this moment, Kong Jianba said something, causing Leng Shiqi to stop in his tracks. It also shocked all the spirit cultivators in the arena. I lost. Leng Shiqi was puzzled. He hadn't been able to injure Kong Jianba without exposing his full strength. If he had succeeded in the 5 elements ring, he would naturally be able to do so. Unfortunately, he failed to do so. If he lost, he lost. What did Kong Jianba mean by this? You hurt me. Kong Jianba wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The power you use doesn't seem to be fully controlled. Even so, it can still destroy the illusion. The power that can destroy the illusion is enough to injure me, or even seriously injure me. Therefore I lost. When everyone heard this, it seemed to be true. Only Leng Shiqi knew that the barely formed 5 elements ring was something he had just comprehended. Everyone seemed to mistakenly think that he was hiding his strength. This was also good. It saved him another round of battle. However, Leng Shiqi admired Kong Jianba's magnanimity. Logically speaking, the higher one's cultivation level and status, the more they cared about reputation and face. Kong Jianba publicly admitted that he had lost to someone at the Heaven-Man Unity realm. It would definitely affect his reputation, but he still admitted it calmly. Just this magnanimity alone far exceeded many people. Therefore Leng Shiqi cupped his hands and said, Sect Lord Kong's divine strength is unparalleled. If we were to fight normally, I wouldn't be your match. I was the one who boasted. I have to admit defeat. Besides, even if I lose, I believe we will still meet in the Ashen Ian world. Kong Jianba smiled confidently and walked off the stage. It was only at this moment that the others reacted. Kong Jianba had actually admitted defeat. This Leng Shiqi must be poisonous. His first opponent had admitted defeat when he saw him use the 4 elements sword Dao. His second opponent, young Master Hehuan, had also left after leaving the illusory sky. Now that it was Kong Jianba's turn, he had taken the initiative to admit defeat. Is there some kind of curse on Leng Shiqi? Everyone who fought with him would admit defeat on their own? No, this isn't a curse. It's the lucky halo. While everyone was still immersed in shock and intense discussion, the next opponent walked onto the stage. They were Duke Qi from the Starfall dynasty and Meng Tian from the Myriad Laws Mystic sect. However, the illusion array had been destroyed by Leng Shiqi. A few array formation masters were sweating profusely as they repaired it, but they soon gave up. Repairing an illusion array was not something that could be done in a day or two. From the looks of it, the final few battles would have to be postponed. The onlookers were naturally unhappy. The outcome of the battle between Leng Shiqi and Kong Jianba was very surprising, but the process was still dazzling. Leng Shiqi's strength had once again convinced everyone. At this moment, someone from the Northern Wei dynasty walked up and said, Everyone, you have seen the situation. I'm afraid the battle will be. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Duke Qi. There's no need to postpone it. I admit defeat in this battle. Hua. The arena was drowned out by countless exclamations. Chapter 861. Everyone in the arena had interesting expressions, including Kong Jianba and Leng Shiqi, who had just left the arena. Leng Shiqi originally planned on seeing how Meng Tian would deal with Duke Qi. On the surface, there was a difference of an entire realm between their cultivation levels. He wondered what trump cards Meng Tian had. However, High Duke Qi admitted defeat without even fighting. Leng Shiqi and Kong Jianba had fought for a while. Although it was Leng Shiqi who was fighting, they had at least fought. Most importantly, why did Duke Qi admit defeat? The two of them had nothing to do with each other, unless there was some unspeakable deal between them. Leng Shiqi wasn't the only one who thought of this. Many people had the same thought. Everyone looked at Meng Tian, who was pretty but not considered a peerless beauty. Her looks shouldn't be enough to make an important figure like Duke Qi submit. They couldn't figure out what benefits Meng Tian had to make Duke Qi lose face and lose the right to enter the Ashen Ian realm. Wait. He still has a chance, but Leng Shiqi looked at Kong Jianba. At that moment, Kong Jianba's expression didn't look good. Duke Qi's admission of defeat meant that the two-peak Heavenly Origin Realm cultivators would have to compete for the last spot. To Kong Jianba, the matter that was in the bag suddenly became 50-50. On the other hand, one of the two-peak Heavenly Origin Realm cultivators would definitely not be able to enter the Ashanian realm. This was a little too dramatic. Leng Shiqi pursed his lips. It was certain that Meng Tiantian had made a deal with Duke Qi. It wasn't appropriate for the Northern Wei dynasty to interfere. Although this violated the rules of the myriad spirit meat, who would dare criticize Duke Qi? He was the duke of the strongest dynasty on the continent. Ignoring his peak Heavenly Origin Realm cultivation, his status alone was enough to make anyone dare offend him. Not even the Northern Wei dynasty's emperor. In terms of national strength, the Starfall dynasty was several times stronger than the Northern Wei dynasty. Even if the Northern Wei dynasty had more guts, they wouldn't dare criticize Duke Qi. They wouldn't dare disqualify him from continuing the competition. Perhaps this was the reason why Meng Tiantian wanted to make a deal with Duke Qi. State Duke Qi was probably planning to fight against the loser to win the final spot, but he didn't expect that Kong Jianba would be defeated. Both of them were at the peak of the Sky Origin stage. None of them were sure that they could win. What made Leng Shiqi even more concerned was that Kong Jianba had admitted defeat, but Duke Qi had still admitted defeat. It was obvious that the benefits Meng Tiantian had given him were beyond his imagination. It was even more attractive than entering the Ashanian realm. Otherwise, Duke Qi wouldn't have admitted defeat even if he had to break the contract. The All-Spirits Gathering, which was supposed to end today, had to be postponed temporarily due to an accident. Kong Jianba and Duke Qi's successive surrenders also caused a huge uproar. However, after the initial shock, everyone was looking forward to the duel between the two. Since the beginning of the All-Spirit Gathering, there had never been a fight between top-level Sky Origin stage cultivators. It was so exciting. Not to mention the All-Spirits Gathering, even in the entire world, there were very few top-level Sky Origin stage battles. Usually, if Tongxian Realm cultivators did not appear, Sky Origin Realm Pinnacle stage cultivators would be the strongest. Even if they encountered each other, they would not easily make a move. This was because any top-level Sky Origin stage cultivator had too many factions and connections. If there was any mishap, the consequences would be immeasurable. It was the same for Leng Shiqi. That was a topic for the future. His current priority was not here. Today he had made a move in front of everyone again. The person hiding in the dark had probably done something. He wanted to see if he would still be dreaming today. Right on the heels of that, Leng Shiqi waved his arm. Immediately, a cold wind blew in the room as several ghost slaves with powerful auras appeared. These ghost slaves were transformed from Sky Origin Realm cultivators. They were Sword Supremacy Thousand Illusion, Zhuozhou, Sword Monarch Startling Dragon, Supremacy Divine Firmament, Heavenly Master Rain, Tian Qixing, and Xiepingyu. 7 famous Sky Origin Realm cultivators had turned into ghost slaves after their deaths and were controlled by Leng Shiqi. He made a few hand seals, and the auras of the 7 ghost slaves suddenly disappeared. They were originally formless. Now that they did not release their auras, no one would know that they were in the room. Leng Shiqi's order was to observe everything around them. In addition, they were to record everything in the room to see if they could find any clues. Then a netherworld crack opened in front of Leng Shiqi, and Nineleaf walked out. She said with a serious expression, "Even with your abilities, you could still be silently tampered with. The other party's methods are rarely seen in the world. This time, I will protect you. I want to see who is causing trouble in the dark." Nineleaf was the one that Leng Shiqi had asked for help. Nineleaf still owed him half a favor last time, so she came without a second word. With the 7 ghost slaves and Nineleaf's protection, if they still could not discover the situation, it would be very troublesome. Nineleaf heard that the Gu King had concealed all of her aura. Leng Shiqi closed his eyes and began to repair his soul. Time seemed to pass very quickly, but it also seemed to pass very slowly. Unknowingly, Leng Shiqi's soul suddenly fluctuated violently. Nineleaf, who was secretly observing, was moved. It really came. At the end of the endless desert, there was a huge mountain that went straight to the sky. On top of it stood a tall figure. This person looked up at the sky. There was no sadness or joy in his eyes, as if he could see through the past and present. At this moment, a strange person walked up from behind him. He was strange because this person's face was actually split into two. Half of it was a human face. It looked somewhat handsome, but the other half was a ferocious beast face. The strange person knelt on the ground and said in a pious tone, "Lord Shifter Emperor, that person seems to have failed." The person called Shifter Emperor did not speak. He continued to look at the sky. After a long time he sighed. "I already know about this. The barrier is getting thicker. If I don't act now, I may not have another chance in the future. She has failed, but at least she still has a trace of life. If I fail, Lord Shifter Emperor will never fail." The Shifter Emperor turned around. Strangely, there were 6 ripples in his eyes. It seemed like there was an endless abyss in them. "I can't wait any longer. Little fool, your talent is extraordinary. It won't take long for you to reach my level. If I win, you'll also have a chance. If you fail, don't try. Go to the human territory and hide. In the distant future, there may be a turning point." After saying this, the Shifter Emperor looked up at the sky again. This time, his eyes were filled with endless fighting spirit. It was as if he wanted to break through the sky. Swoosh! Lung Shiqi suddenly opened his eyes again. He was right. This time, he really had an inexplicable dream. Fortunately, he had a backup plan. He was about to ask Nine Leaf what happened when he sank into the dream. But Lung Shiqi saw that Nine Leaf was prostrating himself on the ground. He was still trembling all over. Chapter 862. In Lung Shiqi's impression, Nine Leaf had always been arrogant. Even when she had just transcended the tribulation, she would rather die than submit. Lung Shiqi was very surprised that Nine Leaf would lose her composure at this moment. At the same time, he realized that Nine Leaf must have discovered something. "Nine Leaf!" Lung Shiqi called out, but Nine Leaf didn't seem to hear him. The golden light behind his head shone brightly, and the warm power of his divine soul spread out and caressed Nine Leaf, gradually calming her emotions. Nine Leaf raised her head, and her demonic eyes were filled with horror. "What did you see?" Lung Shiqi couldn't help but ask. Nine Leaf's eyes instantly became complicated. After a long while she said, "Just now, you were repairing your divine soul. Suddenly, all your life disappeared in an instant. I was shocked and thought you had been sneak attacked. When I was about to make a move, you..." Speaking of this, Nine Leaf stopped again, and there was deep fear in her eyes. Lung Shiqi guessed that some changes must have happened to his body, but what kind of changes could make Nine Leaf so afraid? He didn't rush to ask, but waited for Nine Leaf's emotions to calm down again. "A terrifying and powerful aura suddenly appeared on your body. It was so powerful that I couldn't even breathe. It was so powerful that one look was enough to kill me thousands of times. What was even more terrifying was that the aura had a great suppression on my soul and bloodline. It felt like a god." Hearing Nine Leaf's words, Lung Shiqi couldn't help but gasp. He himself didn't expect that he would have such a change just now. He suddenly thought of the Demon Emperor in the dream. The aura that Nine Leaf saw was very likely the Demon Emperor. Lung Shiqi immediately asked, "Have you ever heard of the name Demon Emperor?" "Demon Emperor?" Nine Leaf's voice suddenly rose, and then her eyes changed as if she thought of something. "Right, your aura just now was very similar to the legendary Demon Emperor. Then in your demon clan, what kind of cultivation is called the Demon Emperor?" "I just learned this after entering the far north wastelands." Nine Leaf's emotions stabilized and she replied, "In the far north wastelands, 7th-rank monsters are generally great monsters. Among them, great monsters with great strength and power can call themselves demon kings. Today there are 9 great demon kings in the far north wastelands, and they occupy almost half of the far north wastelands. Stronger than the demon king was the demon venerable, whose cultivation was equivalent to the mystic comprehending state of the human race. They were all experts who had mastered the laws of heaven and earth. As Demon Emperor, Nine Leaf's tone turned serious. This made Lung Shiqi think of a possibility. The Demon Emperor was in existence above the mystic comprehending realm. Nine Leaves said. Transcending Heaven Realm. Transcending Heaven Realm. 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 There was a realm, be a realm, be a realm, 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 be a realm, realm, realm. I came into contact with a few demon kings in the far north wastelands and learned of this realm from a secret. It's a realm second only to sacred spirit experts. Unfortunately, be it demon emperors or heaven ascension realm experts, they haven't appeared in a long time. I wonder if there are any experts of such a level on the continent. Heaven ascension realm? Lung Shiqi muttered. Currently, there were only 7 known mystic comprehending realm experts in the falling star continent. Even with the reclusive experts, there were at most a dozen or so. There were probably no Heaven Ascension realm experts at a better realm. Otherwise, they would have been able to enter the falling star continent together. Then, who was the demon king he saw in his dream? What did it have to do with him? You have too many secrets. You have probably been targeted long ago. You should think about how to avoid this calamity. Nine Leaf advised with lingering fear. Lung Shiqi couldn't help but think of Oziu's prophecy again. This might be a calamity in his life. However, he didn't believe in fate. Furthermore, the Archean Aeon realm was right in front of him. He couldn't give up this opportunity. Regardless of whether he believed it or not, he had indeed been targeted. He still had to continue being on guard. He stroked his chin. It's all thanks to you protecting me that I know all this. There's one more thing I need to trouble you with. Help me inquire about 2 people, or rather 2 powerful demons. Following that, he described the appearances of the 2 people he had encountered in his dream in detail. Nine Leaf nodded and said, the characteristics you mentioned are very obvious. If they are demons from the far northern wastelands, I believe you will be able to find out soon. I'll be leaving first. Be careful and don't cause trouble everywhere. If you really can't do it, hide in the underworld for a while. Don't force yourself. Lung Shiqi was slightly taken aback. It was truly unprecedented for Nine Leaf to warn him not to cause trouble. He smiled. Don't worry. I cherish my life more than anyone else. I won't die. Following that, Nine Leaf teleported back to the far northern wastelands. Lung Shiqi recalled the 7 ghost slaves and continued pondering. Until now, he had already experienced 3 dreams. Was someone trying to tell him something through this method? But the 3 dreams didn't seem to have any connection at all. One was a teenager, one was Lung Shiqi's previous life, and the other was a super strong demon emperor. There definitely wouldn't be any intersection between them. However, what the demon emperor said made Lung Shiqi feel strange. The demon emperor seemed to be preparing to do something extremely important. Someone had already done it before him, but the result was failure. If he also failed, he was afraid that he wouldn't even be able to keep his life. How terrible was it to be able to destroy the soul of a strong person like the demon emperor? Also, if it was really just a dream, it was impossible for Lung Shiqi's body to show such a powerful aura that made Nine Leaf want to prostrate himself in admiration. Therefore, it was definitely not a simple dream. In addition to the dream, the purpose of the person who secretly acted made Lung Shiqi even more puzzled. Since the other party could quietly do something, it was impossible to guard against it. If they wanted to harm him, they could have done it long ago. Obviously, the other party didn't want to directly kill Lung Shiqi, but had other purposes. Aside from his own side, Meng Tiantian's sudden appearance also had an ulterior motive. There were too many doubts in Lung Shiqi's mind that he couldn't solve, giving him a headache. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Instead of blindly thinking, it was better to recover the power of his soul as soon as possible. Then he hoped to gain something in the Ashen Aeon realm to further improve his strength. As long as one had the strength, any schemes and tricks could be broken without being attacked. A few days later, the illusion array in the martial arena was finally repaired, and the final battle in the Heavenly Origin realm continued. Lung Shiqi didn't watch the battle. As long as he didn't show up, the other party seemed to have no way to target him. Before entering the Ashen Aeon realm, he didn't want to cause any more trouble. In one day, the battle ended. In the end, Xian Haoying and Fairy Luo Ying both defeated their opponents, which was within everyone's expectations. The most intense battle was naturally the battle between Duke Qi and Kong Jianba. In the end, Kong Jianba won by a slight margin. According to the old man's account after he returned, the two's combat strength was very similar. Kong Jianba's victory was due to his thick skin and flesh. In the end, the two didn't use their strongest trump cards. They could only determine the outcome from their injuries. Kong Jianba's abnormal physical strength gave him a huge advantage, so he won. At this point, the 5 people qualified to enter the Ashen Ian realm had been determined. They were Leng Shiqi, Xian Haoying, Meng Tiantian, Fairy Luoying and Kong Jianba. What was very interesting was that the Thunderblaze dynasty occupied 3 out of the 5, while the most powerful Starfall dynasty was completely empty. Chapter 863. Moreover, among the 3 people from the Thunderblaze dynasty, 2 of them were at the unity of heaven and man realm. No one had expected such an outcome. It could be said that it was full of drama. In the unity of heaven realm competition, the Thunderblaze dynasty wasn't that great. Only 1 person from the Thunderblaze dynasty entered the top 5. As for those in the Gang Spirit realm, they had Delta Origi and Jugapuha. Leng Shiqi didn't look for Delta Origi during this time because he was being targeted. He didn't want to implicate her. He had observed Delta Origi's spiritual energy waves. Perhaps it was because they had gone through several battles, but the spirit crystals in Delta Origi's body had reached the limit. He believed that they would soon break through to the unity of heaven and man realm. Speaking of Jugapuha, Leng Shiqi suddenly remembered something. He had found the ruins of the Star Tribe in the demonic Miasma mountain range, and obtained the Great Star-Picking Hand. At that time, he had promised Jugapuha that he would go to the Juga family to release a few experts. However, it had been almost 2 years, and he still hadn't gone. Speaking of which, Leng Shiqi really forgot about this matter. Initially, he had planned to go to the Juga family after obtaining the 3 talents Imperial Art from the Beilu nation. Who would have thought that he would go into seclusion in order to comprehend the power of the 5 elements as soon as possible? After coming out of seclusion, he came to the Northern Wei Empire. At the same time, he also felt a little strange. Jugapuha was clearly here, and they frequently met each other, but Jugapuha did not come to look for him. However, he didn't know that it was precisely because he had forgotten about this matter that he had avoided a lot of trouble. The next day, Leng Shiqi and Xian Haoying were invited to the Northern Wei Empire's palace. Meng Tiantian, Fairy Luoying and Kong Jianba were also present. When they saw the emperor of the Northern Wei Empire, Emperor Wei Xuandi, none of them bowed to him. Wei Xuandi's expression didn't change as he said with a smile, "Since the few of you are the strongest victors of the myriad spirit meet, my Northern Wei dynasty will keep our promise and allow you to enter the Archean Ian realm." Their hearts stirred. Their ultimate goal in participating in the myriad spirit meet was the Ashen Ian realm. If not for the Ashen Ian realm, Leng Shiqi would not have participated. Wei Xuandi clapped his hands, and a large group of people in white robes walked in from both sides of the hall. Then they took out a lot of things and started to arrange them. Teleportation array? Fairy Luoying could see that those people were setting up a teleportation array. Fairy Luoying, you have good eyes. Wei Xuandi said, "There's no need to elaborate on the importance of the Ashen Ian realm. Therefore, I can't take you there directly. Instead, I need to use a teleportation array to teleport you to the entrance of the Ashen Ian realm." Leng Shiqi understood that the Northern Wei dynasty was right. They could not let them know the exact location of the Tsongyuan realm. The group of white-robed men were all experts in array formations, and the teleportation array was quickly set up. This was a one-time use teleportation array, and it would self-destruct after it was used. Wei Xuandi reached out his hand and said, "Everyone, please go ahead. There will be someone to pick you up after you teleport." Xian Haoying gave Leng Shiqi a look. Among the 5 of them, the 2 of them could trust each other. No one knew what was in the Tsongyuan realm, so it was best to be careful. Leng Shiqi nodded imperceptibly and walked into the teleportation array. The scene in front of them spun, and in an instant, the 5 of them arrived in front of a huge stone door. There was a sword mark engraved on the stone door. It was clearly an inanimate object, but it emitted an extremely sharp sword intent, as though it could pierce through the heavens. It made Leng Shiqi and company tremble in fear. This must be the sword mark left behind by Sword Sage Tsang Yuan, Kong Jianba said in a deep voice. Sword Sage Tsang Yuan was the last sacred spirit expert to appear in tens of thousands of years. He was a supreme expert who stood above the laws of heaven and earth. The sword mark he left behind made those at the peak of the heavenly origin realm fear him. Behind this stone door was very likely the legendary Ashen Aeon realm. A statue-like person sat in front of the stone door. If not for the fact that his eyes were open, everyone would have thought that he was a stone sculpture. Upon seeing this person, Leng Shiqi frowned inwardly. This person was clearly in front of him, but he could not sense him. From this, it could be seen that this person's cultivation level far exceeded his, or he was an ordinary person. However, since this person was at the entrance of the Ashen Aeon realm, he naturally could not be an ordinary person. At that moment, Fairy Luoying took 2 steps forward and bowed. Greetings, Senior Chen Xian. Fairy Luoying did not even bow when she saw Emperor Wei Xuandi, but at that moment, she bowed to this strange person and even addressed him as senior. Only a mystic enlightening realm expert could make her act so humbly. Chen Xian was the strongest expert in the Northern Wei Empire. Leng Shiqi cupped his hands. Regardless of their standpoint, experts were worthy of respect. Furthermore, the current situation was very clear. Chen Xian was most likely the guardian of the Ashen Aeon realm. They naturally had to be polite if they wanted to enter. The Ashen Aeon realm is far from the blessed grotto heaven you imagine it to be. There are countless dangers inside. It's not too late to back out now, Chen Xian said slowly. His voice was as stiff as a statue's. No one who could come this far would give up. Kong Jianba said, danger is also an opportunity. If you want to avoid this danger, it will be impossible for you to go any further. In that case, go in. Whether you live or die will depend on your own fortune. After saying that, Chen Xian flicked his fingers, and 5 streams of light entered Leng Shiqi and company's bodies. Immediately after, the stone door opened a crack. A rich golden light shone and instantly sucked everyone in. The stone door closed, and 3 people appeared where the 5 people had been standing. They were Emperor Wei Xuandi, Situ Huanshu, and Duke Qi. The 3 of them were actually gathered together. Emperor Wei Xuandi bowed slightly to Chen Xian before speaking. Will they succeed? They originally had a chance, Duke Qi replied. If there were 5 people at the peak of the heavenly origin realm, there would indeed be hope. Unfortunately, they have entered the Heaven-Man Unity realm. It's hard to say. Since you knew this would happen, why did you give the spot to Meng Tiantian, Duke Qi? Situ Huanshu's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Duke Qi's face sank as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Situ Huanshu's body immediately trembled. At that moment, he felt his heart palpitate. If they were to fight, he would probably be killed on the spot. Duke Qi sneered. Humph, what do you know? Meng Tiantian is very mysterious. Her true strength is much stronger than mine. It's a pity that Leng Shiqi's strength is comparable to the late stage of the heavenly origin realm, but he is still lacking. Senior Chen Xian, what do you think? Emperor Wei Xuandi asked Chen Xian. For tens of thousands of years, that passageway has been on the verge of collapse. Without knowing, those people will definitely attack with all their strength. There is about a 30% to 30% chance of success. 30% is still too low. Emperor Wei Xuandi frowned. Duke Qi said sternly, it's not impossible to fail this time. The Falling Cherry Spirit Domain's Domain Lord has disappeared in the Ashen Aeon world. That spiritual supremacy Falling Cherry will not sit still. When the time comes, we can lure her into the Ashen Aeon world. With her strength at the mystic enlightening realm, she will definitely be able to open the passageway completely. Emperor Wei Xuandi shook his head slightly. With Senior Chen Xian here, spiritual supremacy Falling Cherry will not come easily. Let's wait and see the results first. Chapter 864. This is the Ashen Aeon realm? Leng Shiqi stood at the top of a 1,000-foot-tall tree and frowned. After he entered the Ashen Aeon realm, he was greeted with abnormally rich heaven-earth essence energies. It was not spiritual powers, but heaven-earth essence energies. The heaven-earth essence energies here were at least several times stronger than the outside world. Strangely, there was a decaying aura in the heaven-earth essence energies. It wasn't just the heaven-earth essence energies. Even the space Lung Shiqi saw was the same. What he saw were only huge plants. The ordinary grass was as tall as a house, and the continuous forest looked like a mountain range that rose and fell one after another. However, all the plants were in a strange state. Their surfaces were black and purple as though they had been corroded. However, the plants didn't wither. It was possible that they were still alive. Therefore, Lung Shiqi couldn't help but wonder if this was really a mystic realm left behind by sword sage Tsang Yuan. His body moved as the star-moon wings, which were dozens of feet long, spread out behind him. With a flap of his wings, he instantly flew several kilometers away. After flying for a while, Lung Shiqi realized that there wasn't a single living creature in this world. There was dead silence everywhere, as though this was a dead world. Just as he was feeling puzzled, a spiritual power fluctuation came from afar. He changed his direction and flew in that direction. He was extremely fast, and in a moment he saw a dilapidated wall in the distance. It looked like a palace that had already collapsed. In the middle of the sky, there was a strange black object floating in midair. This object was still twisting irregularly, and it looked a little like a living creature. Beside it was a woman surrounded by countless dazzling flowers. She was Fairy Luoying. I never expected you to be the first to arrive. You're not slow. Fairy Luoying saw Lung Shiqi's leisure island. Lung Shiqi immediately understood that Fairy Luoying had deliberately caused a commotion to attract people over. At the same time, he also realized that Fairy Luoying hadn't figured out what the item was. Otherwise, she wouldn't have lured him over. Instead, she would have chosen to keep it for herself. He asked symbolically, "Protectorate Lord Luoying, may I know what this item is?" "Why are you asking the obvious? If I knew what it was, would I have called you over? There was nothing here, but there was something strange here. Your cultivation isn't high, but you're still a king. Come over and take a look," Fairy Luoying snapped. Lung Shiqi landed on the ground and carefully observed the black substance. This thing didn't emit any dangerous aura, and it didn't seem to be dangerous. However, the black substance had a special aura that was a little familiar to him. He might have come into contact with a similar aura before, but he couldn't recall it at the moment. Even Fairy Luoying, who was at the peak of the sky origin realm, didn't dare to make a move. Lung Shiqi naturally wouldn't make a move. He shook his head. "I don't have good eyes. I can't see anything." So, all of a sudden, Celestial Maiden Luoying moved her finger, and the petals around her revolved like sharp blades, slicing through the black substance. The petals drew upon the origin energy of heaven and earth and were extremely sharp. Even the space around them trembled slightly. Just a little bit of the aftershock was enough to make Lung Shiqi feel like he was being cut into pieces. He secretly took a few steps back as his body emitted a Buddhistic glow. He only felt better after activating the indestructible Vajra divine art. Fairy Luoying's strength was much stronger than what she had shown at the myriad spirit meet. Not only did she deliberately hide a portion of her strength, but the heaven and earth origin energy in the Ashen Aeon world far exceeded the outside world. The strength a heaven origin realm expert could produce naturally increased. On the other hand, Lung Shiqi didn't have much of an advantage. He could have fought Fairy Luoying head-on if he had used all his strength, but now, he didn't have much confidence. The black substance was sliced apart by the countless petals as it began to rapidly distort. It looked like it was about to collapse. At the same time, sporadic blue dots of light seeped out. The moment the dots of light appeared, Lung Shiqi's heart palpitated. He was still wondering where he had come into contact with this aura. When he saw the blue light, he suddenly recalled that it was similar to the Holy Lord's aura in his first dream. Lung Shiqi looked at the black substance again. It looked like a pitch-black universe, and the blue dots of light were stars. It was very likely that this item was related to the astral race and the dark shadow race. While Lung Shiqi was still in shock, the black substance suddenly paused. Not only it, but Fairy Luoying's petals were also frozen. It was as though time had frozen. Immediately after, the petals that filled the sky turned pitch black and shot back at Luoying like a torrential downpour. What was terrifying was that the pitch-black petals left hair-like black lines in the air as they shot out. They weren't black lines, but spatial rifts. When Leng Shiqi realized that something was amiss, he moved his feet and retreated a few kilometers. Fairy Luoying let out a strange cry as her figure was instantly killed by the black petals. Cherry blossoms floated down from the sky in the distance, and Fairy Luoying walked out unscathed. She pondered. I was just testing it out, but this thing was able to use my strength to counterattack me. Just now, its power was close to that of a Tongxian realm cultivator. Kong Jianba, have you seen enough? If so, come out quickly. A figure suddenly appeared. It was the Heavenly Dipper sect master, Kong Jianba. He said with a smile, I wasn't peeping. I just happened to arrive. This Ashanian realm is very strange. I've been circling around for a long time, but I didn't see anything. Could it be that this is the only strange thing here? As he spoke, Leng Shiqi kept staring at the black substance. After shooting out the pitch-black petals, the black substance returned to its original state. However, just now, the black mark and the astral mark in his body trembled slightly. As the black substance returned to its original state, the mark and the astral mark stopped moving. It's strange, but the more it's strange, the more I feel that there's something fishy about it. Sect Master Kong, do you want to give it a try? Fairy Luoying curled her lips. Kong Jianba had seen her fruitless attack, but he didn't refuse. He suddenly punched out, and a fist force that could match the world came crashing down. The fist force stirred the world, causing the ground to tremble and the void to shatter wherever it passed. Breaking through with strength. I'd like to see how you counter my fist. The fist force instantly blasted the black substance apart, turning it into countless black gases and blue points of light. However, in the blink of an eye, these things condensed into a gigantic black and blue fist. The fist came crashing down, causing the sky to darken. It was as though all the heaven-earth essence energy had gathered here. The fist erupted with a blinding stellar radiance. The terrifying might left Kong Jianba alarmed. He stepped on the ground as a towering mountain appeared behind him, piercing into the clouds. It was his heaven and earth aspect. Kong Jianba's attack was actually forced out by the black substance. Chapter 865. With a loud boom, the mountain peaks around Kong Jianba shook violently. With every shake, the ground beneath his feet sank several feet. As the fist force dissipated, Kong Jianba's heaven and earth aspect showed signs of collapsing. With him as the center, a huge crater spanning dozens of kilometers was formed. Kong Jianba twisted his body, emitting a series of crackling sounds. If my body wasn't strong enough, I would have been injured. This thing can't be fought head-on. At that moment, a majestic aura came from the sky as Xian Haoying descended from the sky like an immortal. His eyes flashed as he said, I thought you two were fighting. We would have fought sooner or later. If Lord Xian wants to fight, I'm happy to accompany you, said Fairy Luoying coldly. Ever since they entered the Ashanian realm, they had been considered opponents. However, the current Ashanian realm left them puzzled. Furthermore, they had encountered the strange black substance. Before figuring out the black substance's origins, they would not act rashly. Of course, once they discovered the black substance's usage and method, a battle would break out. Xian Haoying walked to Leng Shiqi's side. Leng Shiqi transmitted his voice to him. Xian Haoying looked at the black substance with interest. He didn't take action because Fairy Luoying and Kong Jianba's consecutive attacks indicated that ordinary attacks were useless. Instead, it would lead to a stronger counterattack. Under such circumstances, he had to think of other solutions. Since we can't attack, let's let it absorb energy. With a flip of his hand, Xian Haoying set up a white gas around the black substance. The white gas contained extremely pure spirit qi. If a spirit meridian realm cultivator absorbed a portion of it, it would be enough to instantly break through several spirit meridians. All of a sudden, the black substance moved and swallowed all of the white gas like a huge mouth. It's effective. Upon seeing this scene, Leng Shiqi and the other three had the same thought. However, in the next moment, the black substance suddenly expanded as a black gas with a decaying aura spread out. Wherever it passed, everything was charred black and devoid of life. With a wave of Xian Haoying's hand, a white gas appeared in front of him, blocking all the black beams. Leng Shiqi was standing behind him, which saved him some effort. The other two also easily blocked the black qi. Judging from the energy ripples, the black qi had the strength of heavenly yuan late stage. It was nothing to them. However, they were all silent. The black substance was simply unyielding. Could it be that we have to use a special spell technique? Fairy Luoying suggested. Many high-grade items had restrictions, and one had to have the corresponding spell to control them. Following that, she used several techniques to collect items, but they were all useless except for a series of chaotic hand seals. Don't waste your energy. A clear and melodious voice rang out. A multicolored light flashed in midair, and a graceful figure walked out from it. She was Meng Tian, who had never shown herself. Now all 5 of them were gathered. You seem to know about this item? Xian Haoying asked meaningfully. Meng Tian was able to defeat the Starfall dynasty's Duke Qi without a fight. She was definitely not simple. After that, he used the Thunder Fire dynasty's intelligence network to investigate Meng Tian. However, he discovered that there was no trace of Meng Tian before she appeared in the mystic 10,000 Laws sect. It was as if she had suddenly appeared, and her past could not be found at all. Furthermore, Meng Tian's cultivation speed was terrifyingly fast. Fortunately, Leng Shiqi was only faster than Meng Tian, so he was able to barely dodge. What confused Xian Haoying the most was that Meng Tian's position in the mystic 10,000 Laws sect was very high. She could use any cultivation method or cultivation resource as she pleased. Even the sect master did not have this right. Therefore, Xian Haoying was certain that Meng Tian was hiding many secrets. Meng Tian did not answer. Instead, she continued. This item was left behind by an almighty expert. Unless it's someone with the same bloodline, no one can do anything to it. Saying this was equivalent to admitting that she knew the origin of the black substance. Leng Shiqi and the others' expressions froze. Fairy Luoying and Kong Jianba took a few steps forward, vaguely trapping Meng Tian in the middle. Meng Tian smiled radiantly. 3 experts at the peak of the heavenly origin realm are ganging up on a weak woman like me. If this were to spread, where would you put your face? Why don't you listen to the origins of this item first? Little sister, there's no need to be nervous. You know a lot of things. If you tell me, I can at least guarantee your safety. Fairy Luoying smiled amiably. First of all, the space we are currently in is not the Ashen Aeon realm. The moment Meng Tian said that, the others nodded inwardly. Leng Shiqi had also guessed that this was not the Ashen Aeon realm. Meng Tian paced and said as she walked. In fact, the Ashen Aeon realm is not called the Ashen Aeon realm. It is only called the Ashen Aeon realm after Sword Sage Tsang Yuan passed through it. If Fairy Luoying had passed through, this place might be called the Luoying realm. And this item is the true entrance to the Ashen Aeon realm. Her words contained a lot of information. Legend had it that sacred spirit experts could open up a space with a wave of their hand. Therefore, everyone believed that the Ashen Aeon realm was a mystic realm created by Sword Sage Tsang Yuan. Perhaps he had left behind some good items and legacies. If Meng Tian wasn't lying, the Ashen Aeon realm was not a space created by Sword Sage Tsang Yuan, but a passageway. The black substance was the entrance. This had indeed overturned Leng Shiqi and company's impression of the Ashen Aeon realm. Even the people from the Northern Wei dynasty don't know what I'm talking about. After all, the Northern Wei dynasty has only existed for a few hundred years. However, this entrance was set up by someone thousands of years ago. That person is the Nether Temple's Holy Lord. He wanted to seal the Ashen Aeon realm, so he used some means to open up a space outside the Ashen Aeon realm, making people mistakenly believe that this is the Ashen Aeon realm. Then he set up an entrance that only people with special bloodlines can pass through. From then on, he occupied the Ashen Aeon realm for thousands of years. Meng Tian's words were shocking. Upon hearing the words Nether Temple and Holy Lord, Leng Shiqi could not help but be shocked. His background was inextricably linked to the Nether Temple. In the first dream, he had personally seen the Holy Lord. Why did this person go to such great lengths to seal the Ascianian realm? What was inside the Ascianian realm? The few of them fell into deep thought as they digested Meng Tiantian's words. After a while, Kong Jianba asked, "Who are you? How do you know these things?" "That's not important." Meng Tiantian shook her head. "What's important is that I know how to open this entrance." Having said that, Meng Tiantian raised her jade-like finger and pointed at Leng Shiqi. "He is the key to opening the entrance. He is the person who has both the nether shadow and astral bloodlines." Chapter 866. Xian Haoying and the others were shocked. They were all experts at the peak of the sky origin realm, and the leaders of top sects and extraordinary forces. They knew a lot of ancient secrets. They knew about the Star Clan, especially Luoying Fairy, who was the successor of the Four Saints. She even knew some of the truth. As for the Dark Shadow Clan, or the Nether Temple, they didn't know much about them. This force was too mysterious. Even if someone from the Nether Temple appeared occasionally, they would disappear very quickly. It was common knowledge that the power of the bloodline had been extinguished tens of thousands of years ago. Nowadays, except for some high-level demon beasts that still had a trace of the power of the bloodline, it was almost impossible to find such a person among the human race. But now, Meng Tiantian said that Leng Shiqi had both the bloodline of the Star Clan and the Dark Shadow Clan. No matter what kind of bloodline it was, they were all high-level bloodlines. In this era where bloodlines had disappeared, how could someone have two bloodlines at the same time? So they immediately doubted it. Leng Shiqi looked very calm. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, as if he didn't care to explain to Meng Tiantian. In fact, his heart was in turmoil. He was the only one in the world who knew that he had two bloodlines. How did Meng Tiantian know about it? At this moment, Leng Shiqi's mind flashed. Some things were connected. He suddenly looked at Meng Tiantian, and another name appeared in his mind. Meng Tianzong. Besides Leng Shiqi himself, who else had the chance to see the secret of the bloodline? It was Meng Tianzong, who had been hiding in the depths of his soul. When he broke through to the spirit aperture realm on the Gu God Peak, he triggered the bloodline of the Dark Shadow Clan. At that time, Meng Tianzong's consciousness was in his soul. Later, Meng Tianzong's consciousness disappeared inexplicably. After that, Leng Shiqi didn't pay much attention to it. He looked at Meng Tiantian and thought of her extraordinary illusion technique. He also thought of Meng Tiantian's strange behavior in the past few times. The names Meng Tianzong and Meng Tiantian seemed to be overlapping. Leng Shiqi himself had also fallen into a misunderstanding at the beginning. He had always thought that Meng Tianzong was a man, but no one had ever mentioned what Meng Tianzong looked like in the rumors. For those experts who were proficient in illusions, it was easy for them to change their appearance and gender. Previously, Meng Tiantian had deliberately given him the divine dreamscape spirit art, because she wanted him to enter the Ashen Essence realm. As for her goal, it was to open a passageway to the true Ashen Essence realm. Meng Tiantian seemed to have seen through Leng Shiqi's heart. She smiled and said, "You finally understand. Since that's the case, then obediently open the passage." At this time, Xian Haoying moved and stood in front of Leng Shiqi. "You better make yourself clear." He could tell that Leng Shiqi had been tricked by Meng Tiantian. Regardless of whether Meng Tiantian was telling the truth or not, Leng Shiqi was the Western Baron King of the Thunderfire dynasty. His strength far surpassed most of the Sky Origin stage experts. Such a person would definitely be the pillar of the Thunderfire dynasty in the future. He, Xian Haoying, had to protect him. "You want to stop me?" Meng Tiantian sneered. She took a step forward as her aura suddenly soared. She instantly went from the peak of the Heaven-Man Unity realm to the Sky Origin realm. Early stage, middle stage, late stage, peak of the Sky Origin realm. Under the horrified gazes of Xian Haoying and company, Meng Tiantian's strength broke through the clouds, causing the world to tremble. Wisps of nomological power surrounded her. Instantly, the sky was filled with 9-colored light. Above the light, there seemed to be countless gods overlooking the world. Mystic Enlightening Realm. Leng Shiqi and company retreated a large distance. Xian Haoying, Kong Jianba, and Fairy Luoying were dumbfounded. This was because Meng Tian clearly wasn't hiding her cultivation level. She had truly broken through from the Heaven-Man Unity realm to the Mystic Enlightening realm in front of them. Only Leng Shiqi remained calm. He knew that Meng Tiantian's original cultivation level was far higher than this. He suspected that Meng Tian was at an even higher realm, the Heaven Ascension realm. Now do you still want to stop me? Meng Tiantian's eyes flashed coldly as she looked at Xian Haoying and said coldly. Xian Haoying restrained his emotions. His expression was as calm as water, and his eyes were extremely firm. Your cultivation level is powerful. I'm not your match. You went through so much trouble to come to the Ashen Aeon world, because you don't want to attract attention. Don't forget that the Northern Wei dynasty's senior Chen Xian is outside. You're right, so all of you should go to sleep first. Meng Tiantian's eyes surged with a strange power. She didn't seem to do anything, but Xian Haoying, Kong Jianba, and Fairy Luoying's bodies suddenly stiffened. Then they stood rooted to the ground in a daze. If one looked carefully, they would discover that their eyes were a little empty. Their consciousness had been pulled into an endless illusion. With just a glance, 3 people at the peak of the Sky Origin realm fell into an illusion. Only Leng Shiqi was left in the arena. However, his expression remained normal as he said, Meng Tianzong, the strongest expert from 10,000 years ago, is indeed powerful. Ignoring everything else, just your mentality is rare in the world. Praised Meng Tian, or rather Meng Tianzong. You flatter me. So Palatial Master Meng gave me the divine dream spirit art to get me to come here. Meng Tianzong chuckled. Not bad. You really didn't disappoint me. After cultivating for a few days, you were able to use the Dream Sky to control young Master Hehuan. If you hadn't defeated young Master Hehuan and Kong Jianba, I would have thought of a way to let you in. Alright, cut the crap. Open the passageway into the Ashen Aeon world. I can recover my cultivation level, and your cultivation level will improve greatly. You shouldn't reject a win-win deal. My cultivation level will improve greatly. Leng Shiqi raised his doubts. If I want to break through to the Sky Origin realm, I can do it at any time. It doesn't matter if I go to the real Ashen Aeon world or not. Kid, you still want to get information out of me. Fine, there's no harm in telling you. The Ashen Aeon world isn't a mystic realm, but a spatial passageway that connects to another continent. That passageway is filled with all kinds of powers, as long as they exist in the world. All the powers are in line with the heavenly Tao and contain origins. Therefore, no matter how you want to break through to the Sky Origin realm, you can comprehend the power you want there. To me, that place is not only a place to quickly recover my cultivation level, but also a way to leave the Falling Star continent. You were able to cultivate to your present realm in just a few years, and possess combat strength that transcends realms. I believe that you will definitely be able to break through to the Sky Origin realm in there. After I leave, I will naturally not be a threat to you. I can also change the memories of these people, so that you won't have any worries. Similarly, I can also control you to open the entrance. It's up to you to choose whether you want to drink a toast or drink a forfeit. Leng Shiqi's heart was in turmoil. He never expected the Ashen Aeon world to be a passageway to another world. At the same time, he had many doubts. What was that world? Why did Meng Tianzong want to go to that world? Did the sacred spirit experts that disappeared in the long river of history, such as Sword Sage Song Yuan, go to that world? However, Leng Shiqi still had doubts about Meng Tianzong's words. Just as Meng Tianzong said, since she could easily control Xian Haoying and company and even tamper with their memories, it would naturally be easy for her to control Leng Shiqi. Then why was Meng Tianzong still trying to persuade him? After all, she was a ruthless person who had killed all the disciples in his sect. Therefore, Leng Shiqi took a deep breath and raised his head. I can try to open the entrance, but I have a condition. Chapter 867. Meng Tianzong sneered. With a curl of his finger, 9 colored threads were pulled out from Leng Shiqi's body. As for Leng Shiqi, He felt his cultivation level drop at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, he had fallen to the border between the Heaven-Man Unity Realm's late stage and peak stage. Lung Shiqi, you have no right to negotiate with me. You have cultivated your entire life, and know the importance of your foundation the best. When you were at the Spirit Meridian Realm and the Spirit Aperture Realm, I helped you open the Spirit Meridian Realm and the Spirit Aperture Realm. As long as I am willing, I can make your cultivation level drop back to the initial Spirit Meridian Realm at any time. You have made many enemies. When the time comes, there will be people who will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Meng Tianzong severed the 9 colored threads and threatened. It turned out that what Lung Shiqi thought was an opportunity was actually a trick left behind by Meng Tianzong. However, his expression remained unchanged. The more Meng Tianzong said and did this, the more it showed that the other party couldn't force him to open the entrance. Otherwise, Meng Tianzong would have already taken action. Why waste his breath here? In addition, although Lung Shiqi had the underworld as a life-saving trump card, he probably couldn't even buy an instant of time in front of Meng Tianzong. Therefore, at this point he couldn't show any fear. Otherwise, he would only be eaten alive by Meng Tianzong. Besides, the real situation in the Ashen Aeon realm was just Meng Tianzong's side of the story. Who knew what was going on? He said without any fear, "Palace Master Meng, just do it. At most I'll die. Unfortunately, I'm afraid this passageway can never be opened again. If I lose my life, I'll be a hero again 20 years later. Unfortunately, Palace Master Meng needs to find a second person who can open the entrance. I don't know how long it will take." "Junior, you are challenging my bottom line." Meng Tianzong's eyes focused. Wind and clouds surged in midair. Endless heaven-earth essence energy was extremely violent, like the wrath of the heavens. The terrifying shockwaves caused Lung Shiqi to retreat repeatedly. He continued indifferently, "Palace Master Meng, there's no need to do this. I still have the same words. I want to make a condition." Meng Tianzong was full of killing intent, but then all the killing intent and power disappeared as if they had never appeared. A sweet smile appeared on her face. "You have courage, insight, and spirit. You already possess the bearing of a true expert. You have the qualifications to raise conditions with me. I made the right bet." Lung Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to block the entrance. Meng Tianzong couldn't control him at all. Now he finally had some initiative. "My condition is simple. I want to know the truth about my identity." "Huh?" Meng Tianzong's eyes flashed. "You don't know? No wonder there were a few people from the Nether Temple sneaking around. I can't say for sure who you are, but I'm pretty sure you're the reincarnation of the previous Nether Temple Holy Master." Reincarnation? Lung Shiqi couldn't help but recall the pair of eyes he saw in his dream. He thought of the young man, and now that he thought about it, it really was possible. It's not very accurate to call it reincarnation. At that time, the way of heaven covered the law of heaven and earth. So many people in the reaching heaven realm couldn't go further. They were even killed by the way of heaven. Therefore, some strong people in the reaching heaven realm tried their best to avoid the detection of the way of heaven. Some people didn't want to give up, so they tried to find another way. I chose the path of blood sacrifice. I wanted to gather the blood and luck of tens of thousands of experts to force a breakthrough. Unfortunately, I was still one step behind. The previous Nether Temple Holy Master didn't try to break through until he died. Before he died, he finally found a body that could allow the bloodline of the Dark Shadow Clan and the Star Clan to coexist perfectly. I don't need to say more. Lung Shiqi's face was gloomy. If what Meng Tianzong said was true, then he was most likely a body prepared by the Nether Temple Holy Master. The young man in his dream was a person who could have two bloodlines at the same time. He was Lung Shiqi now. Meng Tianzong also mentioned that the Nether Temple was hiding nearby. Maybe they wanted to take back Lung Shiqi, the body prepared for the Nether Temple Holy Master's reincarnation. With Meng Tianzong in front of him, and the Nether Temple Holy Master secretly watching from behind, Lung Shiqi couldn't help but think of Oziu's prophecy again. He would die in the Northern Wei Empire. At first, Lung Shiqi didn't take it to heart. He thought he had enough abilities. However, when facing a strong person like Meng Tianzong, He didn't even have the chance to be teleported into the mansion of the dead. Was he really going to die here? Lung Shiqi silently opened the system and exchanged a few things. Looking at the extra things in the system space, he finally had some confidence. At the same time, he also had some doubts in his heart. Previously, he thought that the young man in his dream had escaped from the Nether Temple and was accidentally caught by the Blood Cloak Pavilion and thrown away on the Blood Fog Island. However, according to Meng Tianzong, the Nether Temple Holy Master had found the young man when he was about to die. That was to say, these things happened 10,000 years ago. Therefore, his body couldn't be the young man in his dream. Besides, if the Nether Temple Holy Master belonged to the Dark Shadow clan, why did the Nether Temple Holy Master have the bloodline of the Star clan? He raised his head and asked, "No, first of all, the time is not right. Moreover, if I was the key to the Nether Temple Holy Master's reincarnation, how could I have left the Nether Temple? Also, where did the Nether Temple Holy Master get the bloodline of the Star clan?" "You have so many questions." Meng Tianzong was a little displeased, but she still said, "I don't know much about what happened later. There must be some internal problems in the Nether Temple. And you, or your body, should have been sealed for tens of thousands of years, and was taken out in the last 10 years. Therefore, I'm also very curious. Where did your consciousness come from?" Speaking of this, Lung Shiqi felt a chill in his heart. It turned out that his body had been sealed for tens of thousands of years. Then Meng Tianzong continued, "I'm not interested in your specific secrets. As for the bloodline of the Star clan, it's just a fake god that has fallen long ago. In ancient times, the human clan had almost wiped out the Star clan. Although there were still some survivors, they hid too deeply and couldn't be wiped out completely. Originally, the human clan had planned to give up as long as the survivors didn't cause trouble. However, they were captured by the Dark Shadow clan from another continent. The so-called Sung Yuan realm was the passage through which the Dark Shadow clan came to the Falling Star continent. Later, it was found by the Sung Yuan Sword Saint. The Dark Shadow clan seemed to be afraid of something, so the previous Nether Temple Holy Master sealed the entrance again. Even the Dark Shadow clan couldn't open it. The Dark Shadow clan was very strong, not weaker than the Star clan. Moreover, their methods were strange and impossible to guard against. Hongzai had never had much conflict with the human race, so he just let them be. Later, the bloodline power of the Dark Shadow clan weakened rapidly. They had no choice but to intermarry with the human clan. In order to integrate into the Falling Star continent, they built the current Nether Temple. Therefore, there were many bloodlines of the Star clan in the Nether Temple for them to study. It was indeed not easy to coexist the two precious bloodlines, but they still couldn't cross the barrier. "Alright, I've said what I should and shouldn't say. If you don't open the entrance, don't blame me for being ruthless." At this time, Lung Shiqi was still digesting Meng Tianzong's words. Meng Tianzong had indeed revealed a lot of ancient secrets, which made Lung Shiqi feel like the amount of information was exploding. Vaguely, he seemed to have roughly figured out everything that had happened in the Falling Star continent for tens of thousands of years. Chapter 868. In the beginning, there were only humans and demons on this continent. At that time, humans had not formed a complete spirit cultivation system, so they could only submit to the tyranny of the demons. Later, for some reason, the Star race suddenly came to this continent. They stood on the side of the humans and drove the demons to the northern wastelands. Although the Star race ruled over the humans and called themselves gods, they did not enslave the humans as recorded in history. Instead, they helped the humans perfect the spirit cultivation system. Later, the bloodline of the Star race began to weaken, and their strength decreased greatly. The four saints of the human race rose and led the humans to overthrow the rule of the Star race, changing the name of this continent to the Falling Star continent. From then on, the human race entered the golden age of spirit cultivation. However, this was for the ordinary spirit cultivators. The real experts found that not only was the power of the bloodline dissipating, but even the laws of heaven and earth that they needed to comprehend were getting thinner and thinner. The many Holy Spirit experts that were born in the past disappeared. It was probably at this time that the Dark Shadow race found the falling star continent. They found that their strength could no longer fight against the entire human race of the falling star continent, so they became the Nether Temple. As time passed, when the last Holy Spirit expert, Song Yuan Sword Saint, disappeared, the falling star continent no longer had a Holy Spirit expert. According to Meng Tianzong, it was the heavenly Tao that covered the power of the laws. Those reaching heaven realm cultivators also began to think of ways to break through. Some like Meng Tianzong chose to break through by force. Some like the Nether Temple Lord chose to fuse with the bloodline. And some even thought of reincarnation. But now it seemed that they all failed. This included the shifter emperor that Lung Shiqi had seen in his recent dream. He should have faced the challenge of crossing that step as well, but he probably failed as well. Today, not to mention the reaching heaven realm, there were only a few spirit cultivators in the reaching profound realm. It could be seen that the heavenly Tao's concealment of the power of the laws was even more powerful. It was many times more difficult to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth than before. The age of chaos. Lung Shiqi thought, but he immediately felt that something was wrong. The age of chaos was caused by the exhaustion of the world's spirit energy, but the falling star continent was only a small place in the entire world. Moreover, the spirit energy was quite abundant, but it could not comprehend the laws of heaven and earth. It was as if the heavenly Tao was deliberately restricting the power of living beings. After Meng Tianzong failed to break through, he was lucky to leave a trace of remnant consciousness. 10,000 years later, it was activated by the resentful spirit, which was related to the Lung Shiqi. Now, Meng Tianzong wanted to recover his reaching heaven state cultivation base and find the continent where the Dark Shadow clan had come from. It was also the place where Sword Saint Song Yuan had gone. Perhaps she thought that there was still hope for further advancement there. Of course, all this was based on the premise that Meng Tianzong did not lie. Faced with Meng Tianzong's threat, Lung Shiqi shrugged and said, "But I don't know how to open the entrance." "It's simple. You just have to walk in." Meng Tianzong pointed at the black substance. "Walk in directly?" Lung Shiqi raised his eyebrows. He had just seen the sorry state of Fairy Luoying and the others. He didn't dare to enter carelessly. "What? Do you think I would deliberately harm you?" Meng Tianzong's tone was disdainful. However, Lung Shiqi felt that Meng Tianzong had harmed him greatly. Although Meng Tianzong had helped him quickly open up many spirit meridians and spirit cavities, making him very powerful in the spirit meridians and spirit cavities realm. Even without Meng Tianzong's help, his cultivation would at most be a little slower. He wouldn't have been suppressed by Meng Tianzong and his cultivation base would not have been in the hands of others. Meng Tianzong definitely knew more secrets that he hadn't told Lung Shiqi. He took a deep breath and glanced at the things in the system space again. Then he stepped closer to the black substance. When he got close, the black substance suddenly expanded and swallowed Lung Shiqi in an instant. However, Lung Shiqi didn't resist, because he felt a very familiar and intimate power from it. Within the black substance, wisps of black qi wrapped around him, like a gentle hand caressing him. The blue light entered his body one by one, making the spiritual power in his body circulate faster. Strangely, the black substance gradually stabilized and soon turned into a semicircular black sphere. Sure enough, an irregular door appeared in front of Lung Shiqi. Wisps of golden light seeped out from it. This was the real Songyuan realm that Meng Tianzong had mentioned. It was also a passage that connected to another continent. With a whoosh, Meng Tianzong came to Lung Shiqi's side. However, she wasn't rejected by the black substance. Lung Shiqi turned around and saw that Meng Tianzong's spiritual power was circulating around Lung Shiqi. It was the portion that Meng Tianzong had absorbed. Very good. Next, you just need to walk in. The entrance will stabilize for a very short time, enough for me to pass through. Meng Tianzong couldn't hide the anticipation on his face. Lung Shiqi raised his vigilance to the highest. The closer he was to completing Meng Tianzong's request, the more dangerous it would be for him. He took a few steps forward, and the entrance gradually turned into a door that only allowed one person to pass through. With a thought, the evil demonic light around him flourished. 6 arms grew on his back, and he instantly activated the evil Buddha indestructible body. Immediately, 3 seals appeared around him. In an instant, thunder rumbled, wind howled, and a world of ice and snow appeared. Tripartite seal. Lung Shiqi desperately wanted to enter the door, and then forcefully close it. Unfortunately, his plan was good, but just as the tripartite seal was formed, Meng Tianzong snorted coldly. The tripartite seal in the air instantly collapsed. At the same time, Lung Shiqi felt his body stiffen. Then he couldn't feel his body anymore. Apart from being conscious, he couldn't even move a finger. Meng Tianzong walked over expressionlessly. He stretched out his finger, and a wisp of light instantly entered Lung Shiqi's glabella. The focal length in Lung Shiqi's eyes gradually disappeared, becoming hollow. You have only comprehended the superficial laws of heaven and earth. How dare you show off in front of me? Meng Tianzong smiled disdainfully and said, "The entrance has already been opened. You are no longer of any value. However, I'm very curious about which path my old friend took." Meng Tianzong extended his palm, and Lung Shiqi's body walked into the door. Meng Tianzong followed closely behind. In his spiritual sea, Lung Shiqi's soul suddenly opened his eyes. The fact that he woke up here meant that his consciousness had been expelled to this final place. As expected, it still doesn't work. A heaven ascension realm expert who cultivates illusions is too terrifying. Lung Shiqi muttered, "Since she didn't kill me, it means that she has already brought me into the Ashen Aeon realm. I also want to know what other secrets my body is hiding." Chapter 869. This was a strange space. There was no sun, moon, or stars. There wasn't even any matter. There was only shattered space and countless spatial fragments. In the endless spatial fragments, a blurry passageway was faintly discernible. At this moment, 2 figures bathed in dazzling light suddenly appeared. They were Meng Tianzong and Lung Shiqi, who had lost consciousness. Upon arriving, Meng Tianzong almost collided with a spatial fragment. Her expression changed as she immediately formed seals with her hands. Dozens of divine shadows appeared behind her as nomological powers filled the surroundings, repelling all the surrounding spatial fragments. She shouted in disbelief, "Impossible! Why is the passageway already shattered?" "It's you. You must have done something." She suddenly grabbed Lung Shiqi's neck. As long as she moved slightly, she could strangle Lung Shiqi to death. Ka-ka. Meng Tianzong gradually increased her strength as Lung Shiqi's body began to twitch unconsciously. He was about to be strangled to death. "Ha!" Meng Tianzong revealed a look of puzzlement as she said coldly, "Netherlord, if you don't come out, your reincarnated body will be reduced to ashes." However, Lung Shiqi's body was still like a dead fish. There was no reaction. Meng Tianzong couldn't help but frown. Could it be that I guessed wrong? No matter what, you are the only clue. Good lad. Consider yourself lucky. In his spiritual sea, Lung Shiqi's soul looked into the distance. He seemed to be able to see through the outside world, but in fact he couldn't see anything. He was still gambling. His soul was still there, which meant that Meng Tianzong hadn't killed him. Since Meng Tianzong hadn't done anything, it meant that he still had value. In other words, Meng Tianzong hadn't achieved his goal. Not long after, Lung Shiqi's vision suddenly turned black. Following that, he opened his eyes. What entered his eyes was a shattered void. At the same time, he felt excruciating pain all over his body, especially his neck, which felt like it was about to break. Lung Shiqi guessed that Meng Tianzong had the intention to kill him, but he didn't care about it. Instead he asked, "Is this Ashen Essence realm?" For the Ashen Aeon realm to be called a realm, it should be a space at the very least. But what he saw now was clearly a shattered space. "As you can see, the Archean Aeon realm has been destroyed," Meng Tianzong said in a deep voice. She had racked her brains to enter the Ashen Essence realm. Now that she had entered, it was already in ruins. All of her plans had been disrupted. There are spatial fragments everywhere. Even I have to be careful. Otherwise, I will die. Our top priority now is to leave this place and return to the Falling Star continent. Lung Shiqi seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and saw that the door he had entered through was no longer there. The portal has just disappeared, so there should still be a trace of its aura left. If you go and find it, you might be able to reopen the portal. Otherwise, I can only forcefully break through the void. I might still have a chance. As for you, you can only fend for yourself. Meng Tianzong's cultivation hadn't recovered, so she didn't have much confidence in returning to the falling star continent. It would be best if Leng Shiqi could reopen the portal. Therefore, she had to force Leng Shiqi. This time, Leng Shiqi didn't hesitate at all. This was because his consciousness had sneaked into the underworld while Meng Tianzong was speaking. He found that although he could enter the underworld, he couldn't communicate with the others in the underworld. In other words, even if he hid in the underworld, he was still in this space, isolated from the falling star continent. This way, no matter when he came out, he would still have to face the endless spatial fragments. Therefore, he might as well take advantage of the opportunity to stand on the same side as Meng Tianzong and quickly find an exit. Leng Shiqi stimulated the bloodline power in his body with all his might. A brilliant starry universe appeared behind him. Darkness and stars coexisted perfectly. Sure enough, he immediately felt that something in the distance was attracting him. There's something over there. Leng Shiqi pointed. Meng Tianzong immediately wrapped Leng Shiqi around him and forced his way through the spatial crack. But after a while, Meng Tianzong suddenly stopped, and then a look of horror appeared on his face. At this moment, what was in front of them was a huge spatial storm. Under the storm sweeping, even the spatial fragments were destroyed. If they were touched even a little bit, they would be destroyed. Fortunately, the spatial storm didn't seem to be moving, as if it was frozen in place. Even so, Leng Shiqi felt a chill down his spine. This is the thing you were talking about, Meng Tianzong said angrily. Not to mention that her cultivation hadn't recovered. Even if she was at her peak, she would still die if she encountered a spatial storm. In fact, Leng Shiqi wasn't lying. There was indeed something in the spatial storm that was attracting him. Perhaps it was something left behind by the Nether Lord. He didn't say it, but at this time, to his and Meng Tianzong's surprise, the spatial storm suddenly began to slowly move toward them. Boom! An invisible force exploded, and the entire space kept shaking. The space kept shattering like a mirror. Let's go! Meng Tianzong pulled Leng Shiqi and quickly retreated. She didn't care about the spatial fragments behind her. Endless divine light flashed around her, and dozens of god phantoms appeared to desperately escape. However, the spatial storm behind them seemed to have locked onto them, and it moved straight toward them, and its speed was getting faster and faster. Leng Shiqi's mind was blessed. He guessed that he was also attracting something in the spatial storm, so that was why it was like this. He quickly asked, Palace Master Meng, is there any way for me to enter the spatial storm? Have you suddenly gone crazy? Meng Tianzong looked at Leng Shiqi strangely and said such a sentence. It was too late to run now, but he still wanted to enter the spatial storm. He was looking for death. Leng Shiqi said, there is something in the spatial storm that is attracting me. That power is from the same source as me. Palace Master Meng should understand what I mean. Yes, Meng Tianzong immediately understood. The spatial storm might have the same nature as the black matter, which was to destroy or stop people from approaching, but Leng Shiqi was an exception. But no one could guarantee that this would be the case. If Leng Shiqi forced his way into the spatial storm and guessed wrong, he would only end up dead. I can let you in, but I can only protect you for 2 breaths of time at most. Are you sure you want to go? This is the only way. It's not that I look down on you, Palace Master Meng, but the spatial storm is getting faster and faster. How long do you think you can run like this? At most, you can live a little longer. Instead of this, why don't you take the risk? Leng Shiqi looked determined. He was not afraid of death. Meng Tianzong's face also showed a hint of surprise. I appreciate you more and more. If you were born 100,000 years later, maybe you would have a place in the reaching heaven state. Go. Then Meng Tianzong stretched out his hand, and dazzling divine light wrapped Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi immediately moved and walked toward the terrifying spatial storm. Chapter 870. But something unexpected happened. Before Leng Shiqi could get close to the spatial storm, the colorful divine light around him was torn apart by the powerful spatial power, and was about to dissipate in the blink of an eye. He didn't panic. With a thought, he disappeared from the space. Meng Tianzong's eyes widened. At this moment, he could not feel Leng Shiqi's aura, but he was clearly not dead. No matter how strong the aura concealment technique was, it would not work in front of Meng Tianzong. How could Leng Shiqi disappear? He was naturally teleported to the mansion of the dead. Meng Tianzong's divine light still lingered on his body. At first, he did not expect to enter the spatial storm directly. The reason why he wanted to get close was to roughly calculate the movement speed of the spatial storm. After about 3 breaths of time, he left the mansion of the dead and returned to the shattered space. And his position had already crossed the edge of the spatial storm, and went straight to the center. Strangely, at this moment, the spatial storm actually stopped. The power in the center of the storm would have been able to instantly crush him, but at this moment, it did not harm him at all. Leng Shiqi also saw the thing that attracted him. It was a fist-sized bead. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief. This spatial storm was similar to the black matter. It would not harm him. At the same time, it also meant that the shattering of this space was related to the Nether Holy Lord. Leng Shiqi carefully looked at the bead. The surface of this object was bright, and there were traces of destroyed spatial fragments turning into hair-like light rays that entered it. And inside the bead was darkness. There were also some flickering light spots. Leng Shiqi's expression suddenly became solemn as he stared at them. He looked at it for a while, and realized that there seemed to be a universe inside the bead. There was actually a world inside this bead. What exactly was this thing? Buzz buzz. Suddenly, the bead trembled rapidly and made a piercing sound. At the same time, 2 completely different powers emerged. One was extreme destruction, and the other was infinite vitality. The power of destruction spread outwards, forming a spatial storm. The vitality within the bead seemed to have given birth to a new world. At this moment, Leng Shiqi suddenly froze. His eyes shone with a shocking light, and his mind exploded with thunder. In the depths of his mind, a door opened. Ever since he had obtained the system on Blood Fog Island and comprehended the mesmerizing flurry of flowers, his cultivation path had been the path of integration. He was attempting to fuse spiritual techniques, cultivation methods, and all sorts of strange powers. He was even attempting to fuse the laws of heaven and earth. His original plan was to comprehend the power of the 5 elements and merge it with the powers of yin and yang, 3 talents for symbols, and 6 paths of reincarnation. With that, he would be able to break through the ethereal state and reach the Tongxian state. Perhaps one day in the future, he could even create a new world with his own strength. But at this moment, he felt that he was wrong. He had been wrong all along. Why must it be fused? Why couldn't it be destruction? Since he couldn't create the world, he would destroy it. Moreover, destruction and life were not opposites. Life represented destruction, and destruction represented new life. Boom. Powerful black and white flowing lights burst out from both sides of Leng Shiqi. It was his trump card, the power of yin and yang. This time he didn't let the power of yin and yang merge. Instead, he controlled the 2 powers to collide fiercely. He was going to reverse yin and yang. At the same time, the seal of 3 talents, the formation of 4 elements, the ring of 5 elements, and the 6 paths of reincarnation all appeared. Leng Shiqi moved his mind. The seal collapsed, the formation disintegrated, the 5 elements were reversed, and the 6 paths of reincarnation were out of balance. An extremely terrifying power suddenly surged in the spatial storm. Even Meng Tianzong, who was outside, was shocked. She had also tampered with Leng Shiqi's power. Even though they were separated by the spatial storm, she knew that Leng Shiqi wasn't dead. In other words, Leng Shiqi had guessed correctly. She didn't know how he had gotten into the center of the spatial storm. Now she didn't know what terrible things he had triggered. Even Meng Tianzong, who used to be a strong man in the reaching heaven state, was afraid of him. "Is this the trump card you left behind?" she whispered. But Meng Tianzong would never know what Leng Shiqi was doing. He was doing something even crazier than Meng Tianzong's blood sacrifice of tens of thousands of his disciples. In the spatial storm, all kinds of power of the origin were raging. It had formed another small storm. Storm of the origin. Leng Shiqi felt like he was going crazy. But he couldn't give up this opportunity. This was a rare state of enlightenment. If he missed it, he might never encounter it again. But now, the power was beyond his control. At the moment, Leng Shiqi was bleeding from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. His whole body was twitching. He was holding on with his mind. The storm of the origin around Leng Shiqi gradually solidified. It started to condense and shrink. But the power of the storm of the origin was increasing exponentially. But the power didn't increase at all. Leng Shiqi was under more pressure. Gradually, he was on the verge of collapse. If he didn't stop now, he would be devoured by the power of the origin and die without a burial place. At this moment, the bead began to move. With a crack appeared on the surface of the bead. Then more and more cracks appeared. Bang! Soon after, the bead exploded with a bang, and a destructive force appeared, drilling into the storm of origin energy. The storm suddenly shrank, shrinking several times in an instant. At the same time, another life force poured into Leng Shiqi's body. The endless life force kept him from exploding, and continued to maintain the storm of the origin. Leng Shiqi didn't know why this happened, but he knew that now was the best opportunity. He suddenly pulled with his arms. Rip! The storm of the origin was torn to pieces in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. The shattered origin force erupted with an apocalyptic power, and even the spatial storm was blasted open by him. Seeing this, Meng Tianzong couldn't help but open her mouth. There was only surprise in her beautiful eyes. To be able to forcefully blast open the spatial storm. This power was something she couldn't do at her peak. What's more, Leng Shiqi's aura was also full of destruction. He turned his head and looked over. That destructive gaze made Meng Tianzong feel as if there was a blade on her back. Leng Shiqi reached out, and the space in front of him collapsed one after another. It was no less terrifying than the spatial storm. What kind of power is that? Meng Tianzong asked in disbelief. Not to mention Leng Shiqi, who was a spirit cultivator of the unity of heaven and man realm. Those Ascension realm powerhouses from 10,000 years ago couldn't have such power. What did he experience in the spatial storm? Leng Shiqi looked at his palm, and felt a little incredulous. He replied, I don't know. I'll call it the power of destruction. Chapter 871. The power to destroy the world. It really lives up to its name, Meng Tianzong said in a low voice. Her expression was a bit stiff. She still didn't understand what Leng Shiqi had experienced in the spatial storm, because she clearly remembered that the Nether Hell Saint Lord didn't have the power to destroy the world at all. So even if the Nether Hell Saint Lord had left something there, it couldn't have given Leng Shiqi such terrifying power. Moreover, Meng Tianzong couldn't think of anything that could make a person's power change so drastically in such a short time. Originally, she could kill him with just one look, but now he was a great threat to her life. Even as a reaching heaven state warrior from 10,000 years ago, she found it hard to accept. Leng Shiqi was also a bit stunned. He succeeded just like that? He had obtained the power he had always dreamed of. Although the process was tortuous and brought him to the brink of death, time passed quickly. In less than 15 minutes, his power had advanced by leaps and bounds to an unimaginable level. This was a transformation. Now even he didn't know how powerful he was. He only had one feeling, and that was power. Unfortunately, before he could properly experience this power, another change occurred in this space. Leng Shiqi looked up. In this empty space, endless black clouds appeared inexplicably. A power that directly struck the soul descended. All the space fragments, including the spatial storm, disappeared in an instant. In the blink of an eye, only the rolling black clouds, Leng Shiqi, and Meng Tianzong were left in this space. The two of them thought of the same word at the same time. Heavenly tribulation. Leng Shiqi had seen 9 Leaves tribulation in the demonic Miasma mountain range. At that time, he was very far away, but he felt like he was going to be crushed to death by the power of heaven and earth. At this time he experienced that feeling again. And this time, the power of heaven was 1,000 times stronger than before. As for Meng Tianzong, she was completely shocked. She knew this heavenly tribulation very well, because she had broken through to the reaching heaven state because of this tribulation. This was the path to the reaching heaven state, the reaching heaven tribulation. Leng Shiqi's cultivation base went from unity of heaven and man to unity of heaven and earth to heaven-reaching realm. If Meng Tianzong was only 70 or 80% sure before, he was now certain that Leng Shiqi was the reincarnation of the Netherworld Saint Lord. He just didn't know what method the Netherhell Saint Lord had used. Leng Shiqi, this is the tribulation of transcending heaven. Both humans and demons must go through this tribulation if they want to enter the transcending heaven realm. The heavenly tribulation had 3 major tribulations: the heavenly thunder tribulation, the mystical fire tribulation, and the heavenly heart tribulation. Anyone who was qualified to undergo the heavenly lightning tribulation would be able to withstand it. This tribulation could be done with the help of some external objects. However, the profound fire tribulation will directly burn your body, so you can only endure it. Spirit cultivator whose body is not strong will definitely die. As for the heavenly will trial, it was the most terrifying one. 80% of Tongxian realm cultivators would fall under this trial. Everyone's heavenly heart tribulation is different. I can only tell you 2 words: attack the heart. Meng Tianzong introduced Leng Shiqi to the heavenly tribulation. As someone who had experienced it, she was very experienced. He was slightly surprised that Meng Tianzong would remind him. Leng Shiqi pointed his finger, and an obvious spatial crack spread in front of Meng Tianzong. Then the space collapsed and an entrance appeared. This is the entrance to the falling star continent. Palace Master Meng should go back first to avoid being affected. Hearing this, Meng Tianzong looked deeply at Leng Shiqi. She had reminded him just now because she thought that Leng Shiqi would most likely die under the tribulation of transcending heaven. Although Leng Shiqi was strong, he had just obtained this power and was not familiar with it yet. How could he withstand the tribulation of transcending heaven? Meng Tianzong originally wanted Leng Shiqi to hold on for a while and find a way to return to the falling star continent. But Leng Shiqi could easily open the way back. What made Meng Tianzong even more confused was that Leng Shiqi did not have to do this. He was undergoing the tribulation, and Meng Tianzong, whose cultivation had not recovered, could only hide aside. If he failed, Meng Tianzong might be trapped here forever. If he succeeded, Leng Shiqi's power could suppress Meng Tianzong. Therefore, Leng Shiqi's actions made Meng Tianzong very confused. Waves of heavenly pressure fell on Leng Shiqi. He knew that he had been locked on by the tribulation. Even if he ran into the underworld, as long as he dared to show his face, he would still be found by the tribulation. This tribulation could not be avoided. So Oziu's prophecy was referring to this tribulation of transcending heaven. Will I die here? Leng Shiqi did not believe it, but he still said to Meng Tianzong, Palace Master Meng, I have a request. Meng Tianzong thought to himself, tell me. In my life I have no friends or relatives. This world makes me feel very strange. If I die, I'll have to trouble Palace Master Meng to take care of the Western Baron Imperial residents. Those people are not close to me, but they are still my subordinates. I can't let them suffer because of my death. Also, there is a girl called Blood Moon in the discipline department of the Thunderflame dynasty. Help me tell her that I went to another continent. At the end, Leng Shiqi's tone had a touch of gentleness. Are these your last words? It's not like you. Palace Master Meng, if you talk a little more, I'm afraid you won't be able to go back. Leng Shiqi pointed at the open hole. Under the heavenly pressure, the hole had begun to twist slightly and could collapse at any time. The path to heaven is not so easy to walk. You take care. Meng Tianzong left these words and walked into the hole wrapped in colorful divine light. Leng Shiqi looked up at the sky. The tribulation clouds were getting darker and darker, and there were rolling thunder. The terrifying pressure caused the space to collapse. Leng Shiqi held the 1000 Illusion Dao sword in his hand and pierced the sky. The thousand illusion Dao sword left his hand and pierced the sky. The sword of annihilation slashed out, and the blade that seemed to split open the sky seemed to tear apart the tribulation clouds. He waved his arms and two huge dragons, one black and one white, rushed into the sky. The two dragons constantly collided with each other, emitting a terrifying will of destruction. Reverse yin and yang dual dragon convergence. His eyes were filled with determination. He was already prepared to go through the tribulation. Even though he was not familiar with his own power of destruction, he was very confident. Not only was he confident in his own strength, but the things he exchanged from the system not long ago to save his life in front of Meng Tianzong made him even more confident. The reason he let Meng Tianzong leave was because he did not want to expose his trump card. The tribulation clouds kept churning, but the heavenly lightning did not fall. Instead, it flashed with endless fire. In this dark space, it was as if the sun had descended and burned everything. Leng Shiqi frowned. Meng Tianzong had just said that the tribulation to heaven was first the heavenly lightning tribulation, and then the mystical fire tribulation. But now it seemed that the tribulation clouds had gathered two types of power at the same time. Then another strange power suddenly appeared in the tribulation clouds that struck directly at the soul. Leng Shiqi could not help but feel a chill in his heart. He was really cold. He suddenly realized that his tribulation to heaven would not be three types of tribulation at the same time. Chapter 872. Thinking of this, Leng Shiqi was not worried. If it came one by one, he could rely on his trump card. But if three tribulations came at the same time, he was in danger of dying. Meng Tianzong said that the heavenly will tribulation attacked the heart. It was probably something like an inner demon. When going through an inner demon, one's mind would have to fight with all its strength. How would one have the strength to resist the heavenly lightning tribulation and the mystical fire tribulation? Leng Shiqi did not know why his heavenly tribulation had changed like this. He suddenly had a bad feeling. If there was no other way, he would hide in the Netherworld mansion. He believed that someone would use the Netherworld mansion. Then he would be able to teleport away. Although he could not avoid the heavenly tribulation, at least he could delay it for a while and think of a way to deal with it. At this moment, something strange happened. The terrifying heavenly tribulation clouds in the sky strangely dissipated. They did not disappear suddenly. Instead, they gathered together in an instant, leaving only a few feet in size. In addition to the heavenly might, Leng Shiqi suddenly felt an aura that was enough to make one's soul tremble. The remaining heavenly tribulation clouds rolled. Then, a crack appeared in it, and an eye opened. In an instant, Leng Shiqi's body trembled and became extremely stiff. At this moment, he felt like he was facing the entire world alone. The eye did not have any emotions or waves. It just looked at Leng Shiqi calmly. However, it was this one glance that gave him the urge to kneel down and kowtow to him. He roared, and his body shone with all kinds of divine light. Buzz! A Vairocana stood in the void. Not only that, but several Dharma manifestations of the ancient evil gods, savage beasts, and the netherworld god appeared at the same time. Leng Shiqi held his head high and stepped out. Among the Dharma manifestations, golden light flashed and condensed into an indomitable divine shadow. The divine shadow held countless golden palaces in its hands, and put them into a divine kingdom. The divine shadow looked like Leng Shiqi himself. He did not believe in gods or the heavens. He only believed in himself. The eye in the sky moved slightly, and the invisible power of the world came crashing down. The space around Leng Shiqi exploded with a bang, and all the dharmas around Leng Shiqi collapsed like paper. Even the space around them collapsed, leaving behind only terrifying spatial turbulence. Pooh! Leng Shiqi spat out a mouthful of blood. He hurriedly formed a seal, and the power of the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire and earth spun around him. The 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other, and in his hands, they restrained each other. Waves of destructive power emerged. The power of world extermination continued to intertwine and explode. It was barely able to resist the spatial turbulence, but it wouldn't last for long. Lung Shiqi was incomparably shocked. What exactly was that eye? He was supposed to face the heavenly tribulation. Could it be that this was the heavenly tribulation? But it was different from what Meng Tianzong and the others faced. On the other side, Meng Tianzong had returned to the beginning through the exit opened by the Lung Shiqi. Xian Haoying and the other two Sky Origin stage cultivators were still trapped in Meng Tianzong's illusion. As for the black substance, it was gone. From the looks of it, as long as someone entered once, there would be no next time. Meng Tianzong wasn't in a good mood. She had used all her means to enter the myriad spirit meat. In the beginning, everything was under her control. Who would have thought that the real Ashen Aeon realm would no longer exist, leaving behind only a spatial storm? What was even more unexpected was that Lung Shiqi's heaven-defying actions were unbelievable. Now Meng Tianzong's plan had been completely disrupted. First of all, it wasn't easy to recover her cultivation level. Furthermore, she had planned to head to other continents to find a way to break through. Now all of her plans had gone down the drain. Since there's no way to break through the Ashen Aeon realm, only the far northern wastelands and the East Sea have a chance. She sighed slightly, but her beautiful eyes immediately widened as if she had sensed something. She stood rooted to the ground as if she had been struck by lightning. Immediately following that, her face was filled with horror. She formed a seal with her hands, and her aura rapidly fell. In the blink of an eye, she returned to the Heaven-Man Unity realm. At that moment, she said in disbelief, "That aura is Heavenly Slayer Tribulation. Who is becoming a sage?" The Heavenly Slayer Tribulation was the tribulation that a Heaven Ascension realm expert had to experience to break through to the Sacred Spirit realm. Back then, Meng Tianzong had nearly died under the Heavenly Slayer Tribulation. Countless Heaven Ascension realm experts had died under the Heavenly Slayer Tribulation. That was how the tribulation got its name. Just now, she had suddenly sensed a trace of the Heavenly Slayer Tribulation's aura. In the current Starfall continent, Mystic Enlightening realm experts were extremely rare. Which Heaven Ascension realm expert was transcending the tribulation? She wasn't the only one. In a small town in the Starfall dynasty, an ordinary old beggar was tasting the food he had just begged for. His face was filled with satisfaction. He took a bite of the hard mantu, but before he could swallow it, his expression turned extremely shocked. He looked up at the sky as a glint flashed in his eyes. After a long while he muttered, "Is it that two-faced beast or that old friend from overseas? To dare try to break through in this era, I'm impressed." At that moment, he hesitated for a moment before laughing self-deprecatingly. "I'm an old bag of bones. It's best I don't torment myself." In the East Sea, at an unknown depth of the sea, a person was sitting cross-legged. It was too dark here, and one couldn't see his appearance. One could only vaguely make out a figure. The figure was originally as silent as a rock, but he suddenly opened his eyes. Two rays of blue light pierced through the water for dozens of miles. "Someone has already reached that step. I'd like to see what your end will be." With that, the figure suddenly disappeared. In the Blood Beast sect, on the 4th floor of the Blood Prison, the dozing venerable beast suddenly woke up. It raised its head, and seemed to be able to see through all the restrictions and distant space. Its eyes were filled with fear. Heaven has descended again. Lung Shiqi was already bathed in blood. The eye in the sky hadn't done anything, but he was already heavily injured. The eye also transmitted a thought. Lung Shiqi didn't understand anything else, but he understood one sentence. "Heaven cannot be touched." Boom. The giant eye's eyeball moved slightly, and Lung Shiqi's body suddenly exploded into countless pieces. He didn't even have a chance to resist heaven. The giant eye slowly closed, but just as it was about to close, the giant eye suddenly opened. Because Lung Shiqi wasn't dead, only a pile of broken straw was left in the place where he had been. Substitute doll. This was the life-saving trump card that Lung Shiqi had specially exchanged from the system space. He had originally prepared it for Meng Tianzong. Even if he couldn't avoid Meng Tianzong's illusion and was killed once, he could use the substitute doll's resurrection to find an opportunity to teleport into the underworld and save his life. He didn't expect to use it here in the end. Lung Shiqi was resurrected. He communicated with the underworld, and was about to teleport in. Who would have thought that the moment the giant eye opened, it would seal Leng Shiqi's consciousness, and his body would be obliterated. This time, the giant eye didn't close. Instead, it looked for a while. Sure enough, a few rays of white light were flickering slightly. It was a pure white stone. The white light flashed and formed the figure of a person. It was Leng Shiqi. He wasn't dead, but the system space was missing a piece, the resurrection stone. At this moment, Leng Shiqi finally felt a sense of despair that he hadn't felt in a long time. No matter how strong he was, it was useless. No matter what life-saving trump card he had, it was useless. He didn't even have the chance to escape into the underworld. The path of spirit cultivation was to go against the heavens. This was something that every spirit cultivator knew. Now Leng Shiqi finally understood that what they had to go against was the heaven, in front of them. Meng Tianzong was almost killed by the heaven back then. If not for the remnant consciousness she had hidden, her soul would have been destroyed long ago. Facing heaven, how strong did one have to be to take another step forward? Leng Shiqi couldn't help but feel a sense of powerlessness in his heart. He thought of the Netherworld Holy Lord and the Shifter Emperor in the dream. They were also making various preparations to fight against heaven. Now it seemed that they had all failed. He was afraid that he would fail as well. In order to deal with Meng Tianzong, Leng Shiqi exchanged 3 life-saving items from the system space. They were the substitute doll, the resurrection stone, and the twin life jade pendant. These 3 items could allow him to resurrect once, which meant that he had 3 extra lives. Now it seemed that 3 lives were far from enough. It wasn't that he didn't want to exchange for more, but if he directly exchanged from the system and didn't draw a lottery, the price of system coins would be astronomical. He was rich, but most of it was in the Western Desolation King's mansion. He only had enough to exchange for 3 items. Now the only thing he had left was the twin life jade pendant. If he died 2 more times, he would really die. Leng Shiqi raised his head and looked at the giant eye. He was sure that he would die again in a breath of time. Even if he used the twin life jade pendant to revive, it would be useless. He stretched out a finger and tapped on his body a few times. After he finished, his entire body was destroyed again. Different from before, there was still some blood left behind after he died. After 2 breaths of time, an emerald light appeared. Leng Shiqi was resurrected for the 3rd time. This time he didn't do anything. He just looked at the giant eye in the sky. There was no fear or despair in his eyes. It was as if he wanted to imprint it in his heart. For some reason, the giant eye also showed a trace of emotion this time. Leng Shiqi could see that it seemed to be a little angry. Then there was a bang. Without any surprise, he once again shattered into a bloody pulp, and was then swallowed by the spatial turbulence. This was his last life. Leng Shiqi dead. Chapter 873. Thunderfire Dynasty Imperial Palace. Lei Haoyan's soul clone suddenly flipped the table in front of him. He looked flustered and even a little panicked. The surrounding servants had never seen His Majesty in such a state before, and they were all a little stunned. Lei Haoyan took a step forward and turned into a stream of fire as he charged out of the main hall. Such a huge commotion naturally attracted the attention of a large number of imperial guards. At first, they thought that an assassin had barged in. They took a look and realized that it was actually their emperor. Lei Haoyan burst forth with his fastest speed and came to a corner of the palace wall. He formed a hand seal, and a faint golden door appeared before him. He didn't dare to be negligent and immediately walked in. It was the dragon Vane. The moment he entered, he immediately shouted, "Is old Master Qiao here?" The space in front of him rippled, and an elder walked out. It was the Thunderfire Dynasty's mystic comprehending realm expert, Old Master Qiao. "Your Majesty, why are you in such a hurry? Did something big happen?" Old Master Qiao saw Lei Haoyan so flustered and thought that something had happened in the Thunderfire Dynasty. Lei Haoyan cupped his hands and said, "Old Master Qiao, I'm afraid I won't live for long. I see that your Majesty is full of vitality and spirit energy. Why do you say that?" "I won't hide it from Old Master Qiao. A few years ago, A mysterious expert planted a restriction on me. My soul has been corroded, and when it weakens to a certain extent, my physical body will even be taken away. Old Master Qiao was shocked when he heard that. He stretched out his hand and pressed on Lei Haoyan's head. Your Majesty, I was rude. A gentle force enveloped his body. A moment later, Old Master Qiao said in surprise, Your Majesty's soul power is indeed a little damaged. Who could have such a strange method? I'm not sure either. Just now, I felt my soul shake for no reason, so I wanted to ask Old Master Qiao to help. Don't worry, Your Majesty. This is the Thunderfire Dynasty, the Dragon Vein. With me here, no one in the world can hurt Your Majesty. Old Master Qiao said confidently. Lei Haoyan wasn't very relieved when he saw that. Not long ago, he knew that Leng Shiqi had already died. He did not have a symbiotic relationship with Leng Shiqi, but there was a hierarchy between them. If Lei Haoyan died, then he was dead. It was equivalent to the Leng Shiqi losing a part of his soul for nothing. If Leng Shiqi died, then his consciousness could take over Lei Haoyan's consciousness and replace it. That was why Lei Haoyan was so flustered. At first, when he was first separated, he was Leng Shiqi's consciousness. But after a long time, Lei Haoyan slowly gained his own independent consciousness. This was especially so when he was sitting on the throne of the Thunderflame dynasty. It could be said that he could summon the wind and summon the rain. Naturally, he was unwilling to continue being a puppet and a spare tire that could be replaced at any time. Leng Shiqi's death made Lei Haoyan unable to sit still. He immediately ran into the Dragon Vein to find Old Man Qiao. He hoped that in this special place and under the protection of a Tongxian realm expert, Leng Shiqi would not take over his body. The old beggar of the Starfall dynasty sighed deeply and continued to eat his steamed bun, but it tasted like wax. Dark clouds covered the East Sea. There seemed to be dragons soaring in the sky, but then they disappeared. In the depths of the Blood Beast's sex blood prison, the fear in the eyes of the venerable beast deepened. In the Western Wasteland King's mansion, Oziu's expression was lonely. In the end, he still couldn't escape his fate. Meng Tianzong's expression was grave. He really failed. With his strength, he might not even be able to pass the Tongxian tribulation. Under the Heavenly Slayer tribulation, only death awaits him. Strange. How did he trigger the Heavenly Slayer tribulation? Even if the Netherworld Saint Lord reincarnated, he should have rested and made more preparations. What happened? Unfortunately, she no longer had the chance to find out. At this time, Leng Shiqi was very uncomfortable. He had lost his physical body, his soul, and all his cultivation. Only a wisp of his soul was left. He knew that with his strength in front of the giant eye, even if he had countless lives, it would be a dead end. Since he was going to die, he might as well fight. Of course, he didn't want to fight the giant eye. He didn't have the strength or qualifications. He thought that since Meng Tianzong could survive, it meant that the heavens wasn't omnipotent. So before he died, he used 2 lives to draw out a large amount of blood essence, and then fused it into a drop of true blood. In the end, Leng Shiqi used all his resources to exchange for a secret technique from the system space, blood reincarnation. This was a god-level secret technique that could theoretically allow unlimited rebirth. He didn't have enough resources and could only exchange for a one-time use. Moreover, he knew that even if he was reborn, he would still die, so he hid a wisp of his soul in the true blood. Then he gave up on rebirth and used that power to travel through the spatial turbulence. He originally planned to escape the giant eye's detection and enter the underworld, then find a way to rebuild his physical body. Unfortunately, he couldn't open the underworld in his soul state. In the past, entering and exiting the underworld required a certain amount of spiritual power. The strength was very small, so he didn't notice. Now that he tried, he found that he didn't have the spiritual power to teleport to the underworld. This showed how weak he was at this time. Even if this path didn't work, there was another way. He just didn't know how long he could hold on. At first, it was fine, but as the power of blood reincarnation slowly weakened, Leng Shiqi only felt that he was getting colder and colder. Although he didn't have a body, the soul freezing cold was even more terrifying. He couldn't see anything around him, only endless darkness. He was like a lonely ghost drifting aimlessly in the air. However, he wasn't really without a purpose. There was a force guiding him, as if as long as he followed it, he would be able to get out of his current predicament. Gradually, he seemed to see a glimmer of light. It was a very familiar soul power that came from the same source. A strong hope appeared in his heart. Leng Shiqi also guessed that it must be his soul avatar. As long as he got close, he could revive through his soul avatar. However, a few strands of golden light suddenly surrounded the light, and then it began to slowly move away. No matter how hard Leng Shiqi chased, he couldn't catch up. Leng Shiqi's heart sank. That must be the soul avatar using some method to protect him. He wanted to continue chasing, but the power of blood reincarnation was about to be exhausted. Once he lost the protection of this power, forget about reviving, his last trace of soul would immediately disappear. Just as he was about to despair, a faint blood-red light appeared in the cave not far away. Strangely, that blood-red light also gave Leng Shiqi a sense of homogeneity. He didn't have time to think, and immediately used all his strength to get close to that blood-red light. In the Northern Wei Dynasty's Wei capital, in a secret room of the Thunderstorm Dynasty's Inn, Delta Origi was struggling to cast a spell. There were 5 blood-red figures around her. 4 of them were like guards guarding the 4 corners of the secret room. A blood-red shadow was slowly forming in front of her. It was the blood-red shadow condensed from Leng Shiqi's blood essence. Delta Origi had tried countless times, but every time she was about to form, she would fail. She had tried everything, but it was still useless. Logically speaking, all the conditions for forming a blood-red shadow were met, and she should have succeeded long ago. However, Delta Origi didn't give up. The more it was like this, the more it meant that the blood-red shadow formed from Leng Shiqi's blood essence would be extraordinary. If it succeeded, it would definitely give her a great surprise. Therefore, she didn't give up. Taking advantage of the fact that she hadn't returned to the Thunderstorm Dynasty, she continued to study her blood-red shadow secret technique. At this moment, the blood-red shadow's body was complete, and its facial features were clearer. Only a pair of eyes were left, which were still incomparably empty. Delta Origi didn't have any strength left. In the past, she would always fail at this step, causing all her efforts to go to waste. In fact, her blood-red shadow didn't need any consciousness. She only needed to split her attention to control the blood-red shadow. As expected, the blood-red shadow immediately showed signs of collapsing. Delta Origi sighed in her heart. She was going to fail again. All of a sudden, Delta Origi suddenly felt a sharp pain in her heart for no reason, as if she had lost something. However, that feeling hadn't dissipated yet, and she was shocked to find that the blood-red shadow in front of her had actually condensed again. Especially that pair of eyes, there was actually a strong sense of surprise and fear in them. Delta Origi was a little confused by the series of unforeseen events. Who would have thought that the blood-red shadow would speak again? She said in surprise, "Xiaogu. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."